Welcome aboard, everybody. It is the ASTROLABE. And there he is. Well, I promised everyone in the live chat that we are going to have a special guest today. And little did I know that the special guest was going to be beloved Pixar character Mike Wazowski.
Here I am.
What's going on, Mike? How you doing?
You know, my friends call me Big Mike. And I was thinking, I've noticed that the, okay, you know how you start up the ASTROLABE and then the regular King Build stream kind of slowly fades into obscurity with the occasional, revival when you have, an interview or something like that. But it's basically like a non-existent thing now. So it's just, you just have the ASTROLABE. And now the ASTROLABE is moving later and later and later into the day. So what you need to do now is start up a new morning show, and you can just use the Alembic for now since I'm not using that name. And then you can slowly fade the ASTROLABE into obscurity, and we can just keep doing that.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, is that an eternal return? We'll just constantly, we'll just constantly start a new thing and gradually let the old thing disappear. And then that new thing gradually becomes the old thing. It's like we're doing a lifelong performance art.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the ASTROLABE, everyone. Hit the like button on your way in. Let's see if we can get to 100 likes again. Can we do that 3 streams in a row? 100 likes before the end of the stream? That would be awesome. Go become a channel member, and you can check out the conversation that I had last night with Jason Miranchuk. You want to see Jason cry? You need to go watch that stream. Jason cried.
Why?
The man was moved. He was moved with emotion and sentiment, and he got
Was
choked
he all
up.
liquored up?
No, he was completely sober.
Just being a bitch?
Yeah, just being a bitch. You know, Jason's kind of like the real downside with Jason is that he's such a softie, that he's so squishy.
I don't have that problem. I think there's medicine for that.
Yeah, Ozempic.
I was thinking Viagra, but...
Oh, there's that too. Yeah. You can get both of them at once. But yeah, go watch that. If you are a member of the King Pill Discord, then you don't even have to become a channel member. You just go join the Telegram group that I created, and I don't remember if it's a group or a channel. It's a Telegram thing. It's a place where Telegram people talk. You can go there, and I uploaded the stream there last night as well. We streamed there, but it doesn't hold the stream, so I uploaded it this morning. It was a very good conversation, talking on continuing our discussion on Trump being installed and some of the downstream implications of that. We talked in particular a lot about the vengeful son and the prodigal son. And then after we finished the stream, we went for, I think it was like an hour and 45 minutes. And after we finished, we proceeded to hop on a Discord call and talked for another 2 hours while I went out and bought cigarettes.
I was wondering why you were ignoring me last night.
Was I ignoring you?
I sent you 3 texts or something like that.
Oh, really?
I'm like, hey, Matt.
Yeah, I'm bad at answering texts. Yeah, yesterday was a busy one. So I did the ASTROLABE yesterday, then did that. Go join the King Pill Discord is honestly the way I would tell you to do it. Like, it's going to cost more money to join the King Pill Discord than to become a channel member, but you're going to get so much more for your money. So today I've got a whole bunch more stuff. I sat here and I was going down some rabbit holes and just kind of reading, and I was putting together all the thread or the bookmarks for today. But I kept finding interesting little rabbit holes that I went down, and some of them became subjects for the show today, and others became potential subjects for future shows. Yes, yes, we must until
sponsor.
until Alp shows up. Today is sponsored by Rogue.
Dude.
Mango? Is that what it is? Mango.
Yeah. I hadn't tried Rogue before, but the kind I normally get from my local tobacco shop was all sold out. So I was like, oh, I'll try one of these because I saw that you had them over the weekend in Virginia. And so I got the 6 milligram like cinnamon. I put that thing in my lip and I thought it was going to burn a hole through my lip. It was painful.
I haven't had the cinnamon one yet, but they're juicy.
Yeah, after the pain wore off, I was like, okay, I really like this. So then I proceeded over the rest of the day while I was at work to put like 12 more of them in, just one after another. And then I woke up the next day with like canker sores just lining the inside of my gums.
Yeah, you're engaged in chemical warfare against your gums.
Yeah.
That is the downside with the rogues that I've noticed. I haven't experienced this with Zen, but rogues and ons, I've experienced it. Periodically, I'll get a I'll wake up the next day and there will just be like a layer of skin on the inside of my lip that will just like
bubbled up.
Peel off, and it's not painful or anything. It just kind of like melts a layer of skin, which is probably fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So
I wonder if like the rogues are made differently than like a Zin or something. I'm wondering if there's something in there like a chemical or an irritant or something that's meant to like expedite the nicotine in your system process, and it irritates it, like kind of like dip.
Yeah.
I've only done
that's a
dip
good
once,
point.
and I threw up everywhere. So,
you're not supposed to swallow. Like you're not supposed to actually chew it. You're just.
I didn't chew it, but I wasn't spitting either. I didn't swallow it, but I was just like walking around, minding my own business, just swallowing like normal, and it was disgusting. Don't recommend.
Yeah.
It was actually Xavier who gave me the can of dip because he's like, "Oh, hey, this gives you a nice head buzz." Turns out he just thought it was gross too and didn't want it, so he pawned it off onto me. Didn't give me any kind of heads up. And I was like, I don't know, 16 or 17 at the time, so I was always relying on my older friends to buy me cigarettes, and if they didn't come through, I was like, "Oh, I've got this can of dip," and I was in one such situation, so I put the dip in, and nope, never did dip again.
Yeah, that was basically my situation as well. I tried it once, and I couldn't master I mean, I was probably 18, maybe. I was just a long time ago. I tried to get it in there, but I couldn't get the little ball to form properly. So I was getting little bits of it that were just floating around in my mouth and making me gag. And I was just like, this is terrible. Why would anyone want this?
I knew a guy when I was managing the McDonald's, one of my employees. This guy was like, his tolerance for nicotine was so high because he was like always chain smoking, putting in dip. Any kind of nicotine, he was always consuming it at all times, basically. He got to the point where he had to actually swallow his dip to get any kind of buzz anymore.
Oh my God. That's
that's hardcore nicotine addiction.
No kidding.
Might be the most extreme case I've ever heard of.
Jeez, he's swallowing dip just to get a buzz.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Imagine blowing out your nicotine receptors so bad that you have to swallow dip.
Based.
You get like stomach bleeding or something.
Duff said that he just threw 6 milligrams in. I haven't gotten that hardcore yet. I've done more than one at a time a couple of times, and it just got me just jittery. Oh fuck! Okay, I got to get one of these out. I haven't gotten up there, but I did do a 12 milligram one, and that was pretty intense. Like it was kind of like I got the feeling of like the first time you ever experienced nicotine.
Yeah, dude, I did the same thing. Like someone gave me like a 12 milligram one while I was working, so it didn't really affect me that much because I was up moving around and doing stuff. But then I took another one when I got home and I was sitting here at my computer working, and I felt my head just kind of expanding and contracting, and I was like sweating and my face was red, and then my head started spinning. I'm like, okay, that's a bit much for me right now. Try to ride this out.
We've got dip swallowers in the chat.
Oh,
D. Allman says, former Copenhagen swallower here. No need to spit like a homo. Now, I wonder if they mean swallowing the tobacco itself or just swallowing
That's
the
what
spit.
I'm not talking about just swallowing the spit. I mean swallowing the tobacco.
Yeah. Yeah, have you ever had a dips, like a spit bottle for dip or for lip pillows?
No.
I did it at first, like when I first started, like because the first couple of times that I did
And then
a
you went to
Zyn, I
take a
got like the
swig of one
hiccups.
that you-
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I
Yeah,
drank
that's
my
why I
own
don't keep 'em
nicotine
around.
spit. It was awful. Another thing that I did was I
Make
had a
booze out of that. Isn't that what they do in prison or something?
yeah, oh god.
Spit in the toilet. And...
No, I think they play 2K in the prison. One time I had a bowl of cereal. I'd eaten it. I was sitting here on my desk, and then I had a Zen or something in, and I think it was wintergreen or peppermint. It was some minty one, and I was done with it, so I tossed it in the bowl. And after I'd finished the cereal, and then maybe like I don't know, an hour later, I was like, man, I want another bowl of cereal. So I went down and I poured myself a bowl of cereal and poured the milk on it. Came back up, sitting here eating it. It was Life cereal. Sitting here eating some Life.
Oh, I love some cinnamon Life, man.
And then one of the little Life pieces was just kind of weird and chewy, and my mouth was starting to tingle, and I was like, "What's going on?" And then, oh shit! I just ate a Zen. I was just chewing on a Zen. I spit it out real quick, but it gave me hiccups. I got like kind of queasy, kind of sick to my stomach. And it ruined the bowl of cereal completely because now every single bite that I took had this little minty tingle to it that reminded me of what I'd just done.
Shawnee Mack asked, has anyone tried snuff, the nose tobacco? I have, and I highly recommend it. It's very pleasant.
So I need to try that. It's just like, I don't know, I got to break
it's just ground up like tobacco leaf, and you just do little bumps of it. And it's really pleasant.
Interesting. There's something about there's something about like getting like committing to a habit of getting something that I'm going to start snorting that just makes me like it's like I need to really contemplate this decision before I make it.
It's like a cigar. It's one of those things you do every now and then. Unless you're Steve, our mutual friend Steve, he's like smoking and zinning and snorting and pretty soon he'll be swallowing dip.
Yep. I got the cigarettes and I got the lip pouches. That's generally good enough for me. And then it was fun over the weekend smoking a couple cigars. It was interesting seeing the approach that different people have to smoking a cigar. There's like very clearly I noticed right away. There's two broad categories. There's the like rigid completionists. And then there's the like, I'm going to smoke it for as long as I want to, and when I'm done, I'm just going to stop.
Yeah, relight it a few times. And
yeah.
That's, dude. See, they take so long to smoke that I just... like, I'm just trying to burn through it as fast as possible.
Yeah, it was my first time smoking a cigar in a while, and I'm used to smoking a cigarette, so the first time I just kind of, it's like I'm putting something in my mouth to start sucking on it. And I just like muscle memory just inhaled it straight, even though my brain is like don't inhale it, I'm just like and I was like
and then you did it again immediately afterwards because you didn't learn the first time.
Well, the second time that I did it was because I was getting ready to say something and I didn't fully let it all out of my mouth before I started to talk. There was still a little bit in there, so I went to say something. I was like,
yeah, it's just like your throat just closes right up.
Yeah, right. And then my voice is like raspy for a minute. My throat's like.
What's the largest amount of stimulant you've had in your body, Matt? That's the chat wants to know.
Largest amount of stimulants. I don't know. Probably. Maybe like 1,000 milligrams of caffeine plus a couple of Adderall. That'd probably be about it because I wasn't my Adderall consumption and nicotine consumption didn't overlap, but I've had a massive long caffeine habit, so it would probably be 1,000 milligrams of caffeine plus a couple. I don't remember what the dosages were for the Adderall.
I don't remember either. Like I'm thinking, okay, I probably had 3 Red Bulls, smoked a cigarette, had a pouch in, had done Adderall, and took a bump of Coke.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Probably the most. Coke is so stupid. We don't have to go down that again.
Yeah. It's funny thinking about Theo Vaughn, and like he said yesterday, he was talking to JD Vance. He said he was like, America. He's like, we can't even. He's like,
do cocaine.
We can't even do cocaine anymore. Yeah. All right, let's get this rocking here. I've got some funny clips to start off here. A little bit of slop. Some more sloppy than others, but Alex Trebek here just absolutely decimated this poor woman.
Her favorite type of music is something I've never heard of, but it doesn't sound like fun.
I think it's very fun. It's called nerdcore hip hop. It's
Nerdcore
hip hop. Yes. It's people who identify as nerdy rapping about the things they love: video games, science fiction, having a hard time meeting romantic partners. You know, it's really catchy and fun.
Losers, in other words. Her favorite type of music is something
Is that real?
Yes. Alex Trebek is not a fan of the theater kids, apparently. This poor woman had no idea what she was walking into.
I feel kind of bad for her. It's clear she has like mild autism or something. She's being bullied publicly by this
Alex
guy, some
Trebek.
geriatric.
Oh man, Alex Trebek is like, he's like Bob Barker or Bob Ross, or he's just like what's his name? It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Mr. Rogers. He's like this American fixture, is this like iconic, kindly old man who just there doing this fun game show all the time. And this poor woman just gets cooked.
Bob Barker, was that the dude who was always yapping about getting your pets neutered or whatever?
No, Bob Barker was Price is Right. I mean, maybe he talked about pets getting neutered. I don't know.
I remember a bunch of commercials. What was Bob something? The chat will let us know.
Yeah. The stream keeps freezing. Well, everything looks good on my end. We got 72 viewers, 34 likes. Hit the like button. Please like the stream that keeps freezing. Don't know that there's anything that I can do on my end, so let us know if it keeps happening and we can still not do anything about it. This one here, I'm so glad that you're on the show for this, because I was going to show you this one separately, but now getting to watch your reaction to it in real time. My deaf children screaming to see if they can hear each other without their hearing devices on. They can't.
Misconception about raising deaf kids is that my house is quiet. My house is never quiet. Never. They're never quiet. Ever.
Could you hear that?
Yeah, I could hear that.
Okay.
A little quiet, but I could hear it.
The vision of like a handful of deaf kids having their hearing devices turned off and just sitting in the room and going, "Ah!" to see if they can hear each other.
So my deaf kids are funny, man. My this would be my cousin's daughter. I was gonna say my niece. It's not my niece. I don't know what that is. Second cousin. I don't know how this shit works. In any event, she's deaf. My cousin's daughter, that is.
Mm-hmm.
And she's got to be 5, 6, 7. She's still young, but there's somewhere in that range. And I think she was maybe 3 or 4, and she got cochlear implants put in.
Mm-hmm.
And she's learned that if she doesn't want to like listen to her mom or her dad, she can just like turn them off, or she'll just pretend that like, oh, I can't hear you. They're not working or whatever. She'll do her, you know, the thing that deaf people do.
Her Frankie McDonald routine.
Yeah. I can't hear you.
Oh, that's such a superpower. Hazael says, imagine being able to turn off your hearing. Superpower. Yeah.
You ever, yeah, they must sleep great, man. You ever hear the Sam Hyde rant about deaf people?
Oh, I think I'd have, but I don't remember it.
Oh, well, okay. Everybody should look it up at some point. It's so good.
I'll see if I can find a non-YouTube version of it and share it later.
Yes, Bob Barker is the guy who, the Price is Right dude who said get your pets neutered and spayed or whatever.
Ah, well, that kind of tarnishes his legacy in my mind. I had a friend.
Like my dogs to have balls.
My dog's never been the same since my wife made me cut his balls off. There was a friend of mine in college was deaf, and he had like the hearing aids, but he had like special hearing aids that are like Bluetooth. So they doubled his headphones. And he's a big baseball fan, big Mariners fan. So he would sit in class. He'd always sit in the back. And he'd sit there and he'd have the baseball game on his laptop. And he'd just have his hearing aids in and just listening to the game and not paying any attention at all to the teacher, the presentation or anything. And then if they called on him, he would always have one of his buddies sitting, one of us would be next to him. And so if she got called on him or something like that, we would just elbow him. And he'd be like, oh, what? Oh. And he'd kind of like tap his hearing aids like, oh. Like, yeah, so he could completely get away with it. Yeah, he's still deaf.
Must be
he's
nice.
Not dead. Okay, so next video I've got here. Now, this one here is speaking of female autism. I decided to watch this just because I'm on the lookout for content. Otherwise, I wouldn't have watched it. And it turned out I was actually glad I watched it, even though I didn't expect to be when I first started it.
Just like an actual autist?
Yes, she's definitely autistic, and she's making a very interesting observation about generational culture trends in her own very weird way.
I hate current fashion because judging a book by its cover, it's easy, it's convenient, it's efficient, and you can't do that anymore. I was sitting next to a 25-year-old on the bench the other day. I look up, he's 80 years old. I had no idea. You know why? Because eclectic grandpa got normalized. I don't know how old anyone is anymore. My own grandpa could be younger than me. I'm on the train and I see people wearing hunting camo. Like, you're from Bushwick. Do you even know the touch of a leaf? Why are you trying to look blue collar? We know you're not blue collar. You're a social media marketer. You're goth. Why are you conservative? It's confusing me. Everyone looks like a lesbian now, but they aren't lesbians. They have no lesbianism in their heart. And some of them are mean. Some of them are homophobic. Back in the old days, people used to dress like their personalities. Ever watch The Breakfast Club? Nerds dress like nerds. Freaks dress like freaks. Popular people dress like popular people. It was neat. It was tidy. And now, all mixed up, all scrambled.
Does she dress like an autistic person?
I think
like,
so.
Does she wear like sweatpants and New Balances to church? You know.
Well, she's a female autistic person, so there's a
it's a little different.
It's a little different, yeah. But it's funny that her observation of this is like when I first started out, I was thinking, oh, she's like all the relativity or whatever, blah 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 blah. Blah. But she's actually it's like it is autism. It's like, wait a second, you're breaking my pattern. You're breaking my pattern noticing. This is wrong. You don't go here. You go here.
Well, and there's something to be said about that. Like, I think she's right. There's very few things that make me cringe as hard as seeing like a 6-year-old dude wearing skinnies. Mm-hmm. Everyone dresses like they're teenage boys now, like fully grown men. It's kind of despicable.
Yeah.
Put a suit on, or some Carhartt or something.
Oh, did you see? So I read the thread the other day on here about Trump wearing
Shawnee
a suit.
Mack. She was the girl in the Breakfast Club who kissed the jock. Yeah, that's her.
Yeah, that is her. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, these archetypes are like they're just manifest. Physiognomy is truly one of the only hard sciences left. I did the thread the other day about Will Tanner wrote about Trump wearing a suit and like he connected it to like the sense of aristocracy and noblesse oblige, and then what's the guy Die Workwear, that little Vietnamese, little weirdo. He did a long thread, of course, because the only effort posts that he ever does are really passive aggressively shitting on anybody who deviates from shitlib world. But he did a whole long screed going on and on about how Trump is nothing aristocratic about him, yada yada yada. It was actually he brought up some interesting points, And I'd be very curious to hear someone who can speak more authoritatively on that weigh in on responding to the two threads.
Get Roger Stone to weigh in on it.
Yeah. Or Stormy, maybe. I tagged him in a group chat in it, but he hasn't replied. I'm very sad. All right. So here's a little bit of boomer slop, but it made me laugh, so I'm going to play it for you guys too.
A wet raccoon doesn't have $7 billion fucking dollars in the bank. Excuse me, my turn. You said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me.
The total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. And your father was never considered smart. He was never considered a good senator. He was only a good vice president because he understood how to kiss Barack Obama's ass. Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's
You
the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to, you're a nasty person. Don't be rude. I'm not going to give you a question. You are fake news. If I were running The View, I'd fire Rosie. I mean, I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers. I'd say, Rosie, you're fired.
Tell women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account.
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail. She's shocked that I picked her.
No.
She's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do. She was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute. I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
His visceral response to attack people on their appearance, short, tall, fat, ugly. My goodness, that happened in junior high. Are we not way above that? Would we not all be worried to have someone like that
incoming
in the nuclear arsenal?
Mr. Trump?
I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there.
Oh, Rand. You can't take a shot at the king and leave yourself that wide open. It was like the most obvious comeback, but only Trump would actually say it. Trump's greatest hits. Okay, so things are moving very quickly, ladies and gentlemen. The Overton window is shattered completely. This is on Flagrant. This is Andrew Schultz podcast, which just had Donald Trump on. This is the conversation they were having.
And where do whites come from? Kevin, I think that's one explanation. I do think it's one explanation we should look into.
It's one.
I think it's one.
There's another one. There's another equal and opposite
Where
explanation.
did Jews come from? I don't want to really get into that because it's more of a political discussion. But I don't want to rile people up on the internet right now.
Gringotts.
But I think we do know where they come from. We do know where they're going. We know because they've underneath chased that.
For those who don't know, Gringotts was a bank in Harry Potter.
At every place they go, that's crazy. That is, somebody said the funniest joke. They said, because Jews have been literally kicked out of every single country that they've been in outside of America. I think literally every single country they've been like rounded up and kicked out of. There's still time. And okay. And
go for the joke. It's okay.
And this is often something. This is often something that Jews share. No, this is true. They haven't worn over what other states they say they're welcome yet. But this is something that you hear a lot, and it's something Jews talk about a lot, and to explain like the victimization they've went through for thousands of years. And somebody said, hey, if your friend got kicked out of like every bar that he ever went in, would you be like, man, them bars are fucked up?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, the FanDuel Americans are getting 109 pilled, folks. He said it. Could you have imagined? I mean, this is what comedy was like in these circles, like, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, I remember when we used to be able to have fun.
Yeah. And then things got so stuffy and uptight for this brief period of time that has seemed like forever. That's been how overbearing and oppressive it is that it's only been like a decade, maybe. And now something has happened, and that door has been flung wide open. The longhouse is burning. And I had this other one here from Andrew Schultz that I figured I'd plug in here with this.
I'm just saying he's fucking boring. Like, be honest with me right now. Do any of you love Joe Biden? No. Right? Biden ain't got no merch. Like, that's how I judge presidents now, bro. Can you move merch or can you not? Because Trump had merch, bro. That MAGA hat was iconic. Bro, that was white people's teardrop tattoo. That's what that was. You saw a white dude with that hat, you were like, yeah! He don't give a fuck! In public, dog! In public, the hat is the last thing you put on your body before you leave the house. It's so easy not to wear it. But some people looked at that hat like, how difficult do I want my day to be? Fuck it, I choose violence today. I used to love seeing that hat in the wild, bro. Because I'm from New York. Nobody ever has a hat. You never see a MAGA hat in New York. So when I'm on the road, I'm just waiting for it. Because the energy around the hat was amazing. Right? Because the people that wear the MAGA hat, I don't know if you noticed this, but they're always in the best mood, smiling ear to ear, just cheesed up. Because the hat does all the shit talk. Right? They're just walking around like, hey, Hector, how you doing? But the hat's like, we're building a fucking wall, Hector. We build that fucking wall, bro. MAGA, make amigos go away, Hector.
Make amigos go away. Yeah, I've gotten the word that Andrew Schultz is a divisive character among our guys. A lot of guys think that he's like not a good comedian, or he's not very funny, or I mean, like, sure, okay. Each person has their own perception of humor, and fighting over whether or not someone's funny is stupid. But whether or not you think he's funny, you have got to acknowledge that he is an incredibly effective comedian. He knows exactly how to work an audience and how to speak to them, how to speak their language, how to connect to them. And he frames these things up in such a way that makes it really takes advantage of the subversive attributes of comedy. Being able to take something like the MAGA hat and talk about it in a way that even like at the height of wokeness, this looks like it's a few years old. Like, even at the height of wokeness, he would be able to talk about stuff in this way. And this is part of that being out at the fringe, normalizing things process. Because what he observes with this here is that there's a power to the MAGA hat. And he manages to do it in kind of a neutral way, where it's just like, man, I notice every single person wearing a MAGA hat, like, dude, that guy's got balls. That guy, which everyone can agree. Yeah, if you're out wearing a MAGA hat, you've got balls. Everyone can agree that when I see a person with a MAGA hat on, they all look happy.
I remember in 2017, I remember in 2017 walking around with a MAGA hat on and feeling like this sort of buzz of anxiety.
Uh-huh.
Like, oh, man. Yeah.
Am I going to get shot?
Who's going to start shit?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I do wonder when I hear, like, I see these developments. Supposing our fearless leader, my president, Kamala Harris, supposing that she wins the election, I don't know that you can put this genie back in the bottle as far as, like, culturally speaking. Like, are they going to try to, like, just really crack down on censorship and everything? I don't know, man. It feels to me like that ship has kind of sailed at this point.
Yeah.
Might that's add gasoline to the fire.
Right. Yeah, that's what I think that right there is one of the biggest reasons why I think it's impossible for them to install her. Now, I mean, I can make that prediction, and then if that prediction winds up being wrong, then I look stupid, but I'm just saying it honestly from where I'm sitting right now. I don't think it's possible for them to pull together the public will to affect the installation and to sustain it. Because, like, if they do install her, she's just going to be a lame duck. Yeah. If she gets installed, she's it's going to be the most illegitimate presidential administration of all time. Nobody's going to respect it. And that's going to portend much worse things in the mind of, like, the average normie. The idea of having the U.S. federal government just have its legitimacy just completely annihilated means that all sorts of things are up for grabs in the world. So actually having her, having her be installed is the much more dangerous, chaotic, unpredictable, unstable move. If I was just like a wealthy business person who's just kind of politically ambivalent, and I'm just like, who's going to make it so I can keep making money? That's the overwhelming majority of people. So I just don't think that it would be possible for them to, like, they're going to try to install her, but it's just not going to succeed. Tweet here from Mario Knopfel highlighting the fact that Chris Cuomo just made an ad for Trump effectively.
Kamala Harris is not a godsend, all right? You people didn't even like her 6 months ago. Now all of a sudden, she's black female Jesus. The way Obama was black Jesus. And let me tell you something. He had a lot more going for him than Kamala Harris does. And not just as firsts go, but his type of campaigning, his type of persuasion, his charisma, okay? He was imbued with things that she is not. And I don't mean that as a criticism. It's just a point of comparison. And her process fucked her also. There's a convenience in it, but it fucked her also. Because there are a lot of misgivings about her. There's an underlying feeling that she didn't get this the right way. She may not have won a primary. She didn't even make it to the first round of primaries when she did run. And that is both fair and unfair at the same time. But look, this idea of don't say anything bad about her because Trump, I don't buy that. I don't buy that. And it's not how you get to a better place. It's a relative assessment. She has negatives, so does he. Does he have more? Yeah. He also has a way more intense following. That's why this race is so tight. Now explain that to me. Unless you want to write off half this country as bigots, how do you explain it being so tight? Maybe you're not as right about everything as you think you are. Maybe you should be a little bit more open to the people that you disagree with. Maybe they're not all racists.
So his
listening to him.
Yeah, right. Yeah. His
Does he have, like, a
normalization.
podcast? I'm seeing this logo here for the first time. Does he have like a podcast or something?
Yeah, he's on Patrick Bet David's network.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so he's, I mean, I see him as I don't think he's super bright, but I think he's got really high like animal intelligence, like very like feral intelligence. So he recognizes the way the winds are blowing. These are some of the strongest indicators. Is these people, like, people will say, "Oh, it doesn't, what he says doesn't matter because he's just a grifter." But when the grifters start grifting, so they start all moving across the aisle to start grifting on MAGA, like, those are the people to listen to because they're the ones who are the most adept at figuring out where the winds are blowing and positioning themselves to take advantage of it.
Yeah, weathermen.
Yes, yeah, that's a good analogy. This is like the political weathermen or the grifters. There's one thing that he said here that I wanted to highlight was him talking about how her being installed has left this kind of stink on her. That her having the people just having this kind of latent sense that she doesn't deserve to be there, that she didn't earn her way there, it isn't rightful for her to be there. That's part of the reason why sustaining her installation would be so difficult. Because the whole value proposition here with having a patsy president is that you can at least pass off the idea that that person is running the show so that the people who are actually running the show can operate in darkness. The whole premise of their positions is that they operate in darkness. They can't operate in the light Because if they operated in the light, if they actually ran for office themselves, the real power brokers, then they're not going to be able to. They have to be in the shadow of someone else to be able to fully do what they're doing, because operating in the light is going to amplify what they're doing too much. So having Kamala installed will undermine all of that, because everyone will know that Kamala's not running anything, which means there's people around her who are running things. And there's been a sense of that developing throughout the Biden administration. It was obvious to many people at first, but it's gradually become normalized to the point where he finally is straight up removed. And so then the conversation becomes, okay, well, Biden wasn't running the show, so who is? Is it Obama? Is it Jill? Is it Janet Yellen, Anthony Blinken, Lloyd Austin? Which one's running the show? Merrick Garland. Well, all of them are running the show. But they operate and function best when they aren't the ones under the microscope. Kamala being installed will make it abundantly clear that they're the ones running the show, and then they're the ones who come under heat. They can no longer hide in the shadow of the Oval Office. So even if they were to effectively install her, they still can't win that way, because they're not going to be able to sustain a ruling government. They're not going to be able to sustain a coalition. They're just going to get kneecapped and not be able to project their will, and it's just going to draw even more attention and focus and ire toward them. And if you recognize that many of them are grifters, in the same way that like Chris Cuomo is, they're just grifters who happen to find their way into elected office, into a public office as opposed to the media, then they're gonna know where the winds are blowing, and they're gonna make the self-preservational moves themselves to ensure that they don't fall afoul of the the beast. So there's going to be all of these installation efforts, all the fortification efforts. They're going to happen. But there isn't ultimately going to be the will or the see it throughness present among enough people to actually sustain it. So it will fall apart. That's my primary prediction. The secondary prediction would be that Trump just wins outright and they just go away. I think there's the possibility of that. Supposedly there's supposed to be something really dark dropping about Kamala today. I haven't seen anything on it yet, but I'm not exactly holding out hope. You guys are going to have to brace yourselves through this one, but it's another vibe shift indicator.
Trump or Kamala?
Kamala.
Kamala.
Okay, and why?
Because she's cool.
That's what my parents told me.
Not a felon either, so we'll take our wins.
Watch this chick on the right.
Is there anything you like about her, like her policies or?
Our political science roommate's really big on her.
So we stand with her.
So you got that loyalty with your roommate?
Yes.
Yes.
Whatever.
Just protecting women's rights. So
yes.
big on that one.
And she's trying to make gun safety stuff.
So basically, you want to be able to kill your own kid?
Yeah. Get rid of it.
I think it's my choice.
Yeah,
If I don't want a kid, I'd rather kill it than like have it live a miserable life.
You guys believe in God?
No.
In some way, sure.
And what about Trump? Do you dislike him?
No.
He's pretty funny.
He is. I repost all the funny moments.
All right, you should vote for him.
No, thank you.
I'll have to ask my roommate on that one.
Trump or
Chick on the right is 100% voting for Trump. I'm learning now that I see these videos and they just they're like the same old slop that I've seen for years now. But if I sit and watch through them, something happens and I'm like, whoa, I didn't expect that. That's new. These girls would be the absolute archetype of the completely deranged, like Trump is the worst thing ever. He's rape culture personified or whatever. They're like, yeah, I'm voting Kamala because she's cool and she's going to do like gun safety and she's going to let me kill my kid. And I think that's good. Like they're straight up saying it. And he's like, do you dislike Trump? They're like, no, he's cool. He's funny. I just like Kamala. They're like, there's like no hostility toward Trump. Now the one on the left, there's a little bit more, but even her, she's like, yeah, he's cool. He's funny. This is a huge change from even just a couple of years ago. So even among like a lot of the core of Kamala's base, there's just kind of like, yeah, Trump's cool. I just like Kamala better. This is the type of person that would just like, they're not going to go campaigning and rampaging about protesting the election. It's going to go through and they're going to be like, whatever. They're just kind of doing their fashionable thing right now. This is where the kids are at.
Kids don't really vote, though.
Right, yeah, they don't.
So it's like, doesn't really matter.
They will someday, though.
Someday, yeah, but like right now.
Right. And you can tell especially they're going to be even less inclined to vote. Because they're like, oh, yeah, I want Kamala. She's going to do this stuff. That's cool. We really like Kamala. But Trump's cool. Yeah. Like, that's not someone who's going to go out of their way to go vote.
Can somebody explain to me I mean, it is clear. Like, okay, so Straight Buster said in the chat, saw a tweet that was like, quote, so are we ready to give up on this women's suffrage thing now that we know that their number one issue is killing babies? And, like, that really is their number one issue.
Uh-huh.
Why does that matter so much to them? Why is that the thing?
Well, I know Jason would say it's the spirit of the devouring mother. It's like the extinction burst of that overbearing feminine.
I think I understand like the symbolic sort of threads that are playing out or I understand that, but like, can you put yourself into the head of shit-live woman who this is their number one issue? This is like their one issue voter thing. Like, I want to be able to kill my child. And why? Because I've asked my shit-live neighbor who is one such female. And like, okay, the same one that I had talked about the other day, who was all concerned about fascism in the U.S. and in Western nations, yada yada. Mr. Hortler,
noted fascist Vladimir Lenin.
Yeah, right. Noted fascist Vladimir Lenin. No, Stalin. Or maybe.
Well, then she said, yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, she said Stalin, and I was like, Stalin? You mean the Bolshevik? She's like, oh, maybe I'm thinking of Lenin. And that's when I was like, okay. Whatever. Bad thing. Bad thing is evil fascist. And like, I was trying to understand, like, okay, so is this, because then I in other conversations I pressed her more and more on like, try to triangulate what exactly the issue is, and it comes down to women's rights. And I'm like, so you mean abortion? That's what we're talking about here, like abortion? And she's like, well, also like IVF. This freaking IVF it's like this wild card that gets thrown. Like,
no way she knows what it actually is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if you ask, this is a good window into the mind of the shit lib. If you ask them like, why would somebody who is pro-life be against IVF if they're pro-life? They wouldn't even know where to start. And that just shows like they do not understand the opposition at all. But that said, basically, yeah, I got after doing the tedious kind of like walking on eggshells, trying to kind of triangulate, get down to the thing. It was like women's reproductive rights. And I'm like, okay, so you mean abortion. So that's your thing. Everything that is like, okay, you say you're scared of fascism and you're scared of this, and you're scared of that, or whatever it is. Like, no, you just like abortion. That's what it's about, right? And she wouldn't say yes, but I mean, it was obvious that's what it was. Because when you get to that point, obviously nobody's like, well, yeah, that's my number one issue. I want abortion to be legal. Like, even the shit libs probably feel kind of gross saying that, unless they're like the totally whacked out ones. Even they feel kind of like, yeah, this is kind of icky. Even if we think it should be legal, this whole thing is kind of icky. I can't put myself in like, what is the... And then they frame it like, cause she said like, well, what if I'm in a situation where like, I want to have kids and I can't get the health care that I need? And I'm like, if you want to have kids, the health care that you need to kill the kid that you want to have, what are you talking about? They don't think. They're not thinking. This isn't a rational thing. So what is it about the being able to kill your baby thing? Is it just like, when women get any ounce of power, they resort back to witchcraft? Is it just that? Is it just primordial, like, like strangle baby, Moloch? Is that what they do? Is that it? Is it just like the the feminine primordial sin kind of thing? Like,
I think
what is it? What
women
is it?
women are like the mirror of the culture. Like they will reflect the values of the culture back out like passively. Like this is their role, the fundamental
it's certainly
feminine
the
role.
case that our culture is antinatalist and very high time preference.
Yeah. So they're basically just it's like a program running. And their program is reflect back to you the input. So the overwhelming input for the last decade or so has been kill baby, kill baby, kill baby, kill baby, kill baby. And so to them, there's not even like killing my baby. It's like kill baby now just means like be a woman. These things have been kind of like transposed in their head. So like be an autonomous woman with control over my body is what kill baby means. And the actual killing of the baby is sort of tangential to that. But it's like their brains
like
have
a
been
power
broken.
thing? Is that what it is? Like, yeah. Andrew says in the chat, I don't get the IVF conversation right now. We can barely get them to stop killing their babies already. It's like we can't bench 95 pounds and we want to put 300 pounds on the bar. I think that's right. Because this is one of the things that, like, okay, you could say philosophically, morally, etc. IVF it's obviously, you look into it for 5 minutes, IVF is obviously just witchcraft. It's horrible. The thing's horrid. But you get these people who are, and I know some who are very very down on Trump right now, and they're kind of doing the doomer thing, and they're one of the reasons they give for why they kind of do the libertarian thing where it's like principle or whatever. Like if I can't have 100% of what I want right now, fuck it. And they're just like, well, he supports IVF and IVF is bad, therefore, nah. And it's like, okay, dude, let's have a little nuance here. Let's put on our thinking caps. Thinking cap. And like, okay, here are your options. Your options are IVF and IVF. So that's not on the table right now. One of these camps is federal abortion that you have to pay for and a whole bunch of other bad shit. The other one is limited abortion by the states and some good stuff. But IVF is not part of the discussion. So it's like, can you weigh these at all and be like, hey, maybe that's a better direction than that one?
Yeah, it's like you can take, like, the way principles work is that literally every single possible thing can be rooted back to a principle. So if you take any sort of deviation and say, oh, well, this here is a manifestation of this principle, which means to accept the corpus of this person's beliefs or policies means I have to negate this particular principle here. You could do that on literally anything forever. That's not actually a useful rubric. It's just an elaborate way of saying I'm going to opt out of every single one of these decisions forever. So it's really just kind of cowardice and laziness to make but my principles. Politics isn't the place for principles. Like principles have a place in politics,
and even then,
but it's not
furthermore,
rooted in it.
Like, because I see some of the same folks who I was just describing. They get outraged that J.D. Vance is a Roman Catholic, and he's he's out there saying like, oh, we should support IVF or whatever. And it's like, do you guys want them? Like, okay, taking for granted everything I just laid out. Like, okay, one option, much better than other option. Not ideal, definitely not ideal. So we have this option that's not ideal, but certainly better in a lot of ways than this option. And you're going to dispense with it. Like, okay, so between these two, this is the better option. This is the way we want to go. But you want the guy who's trying to like take us in that direction to just completely nuke his own campaign, to shoot himself in the dick. Just like, no, fuck IVF, ban abortion, throw them all out, hang, trannies or whatever. Like, do people like just take things at face value? Like, obviously it's not politically expedient to campaign against IVF.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you were imagine having a robber in your house and you're trying to negotiate the robber out of the house, and right now he's in the kitchen around all of the knives, And you're like, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to try to lure him or bait him or force him over into the living room. And the people in the and then the people who are the peanut gallery is like, you mean you're just going to give the TV to him? And it's no,
or you're gonna let
I'm
him
going to
stay
keep
in the
him away
house?
from the knives. Yeah, right. You're going to let him stay in the house. Well, clearly the goal is eventually to get him out of the house,
Right,
but
and the
first we
other
need to get him away
option-
from the knives.
The other option is there's like a machine gun. It's like just giving the guy a machine gun, you know?
Yeah, right.
So it's like the living room or the machine gun. These are your options right now. Neither are ideal. We've got the dude in our house.
Yes.
So I don't understand that. And obviously, we all know this, that what people say while they're campaigning and how they govern rarely ever match up. And I mean, that can be for good or for ill. In my lifetime, it's always been for ill. But, I don't know. A little hope wouldn't kill you.
Mm-hmm. And it seems...
obviously, if you know anything about politics and you're not a retarded libertarian or whatever, is you want to win. That's the goal. That's what you do. You get power, and then you use that power to get more power, and you do that more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point.
You're right. That's the point of engaging in politics.
And furthermore, like, even if you don't like Trump or you don't like Vance or you don't like the words they're saying or whatever while they're on the campaign trail trying to win, then because you have autism and you're good at like abstracting, just abstract up another level and look at competing power factions.
Mm-hmm.
This one's better than this one.
Mm-hmm.
This one wants you all dead. This one, at least, I don't know, man. And
it's like
the
that
thing
other
about
one's
IVF,
indifferent
like,
to your death.
Yeah, the IVF, like, I'll take indifference to my death over like actual just want to be dead.
Yeah, right.
And furthermore, like on the IVF thing, IVF, yes, witchcraft, totally evil, wicked, bad, should be banned, obviously, for anyone who's looked into it. However, at least ostensibly, IVF has a more pro-natalist sentiment.
Right.
You know? So if you could use that as a way to kind of wedge the women's reproductive rights issue apart and be like, here's the pro-natalist side, here's the anti-natalist. That's a better direction to go in.
Right. Yeah, this is one of the things
as we move that way.
The majority of people have no idea.
Good.
Yes, the majority of people have no idea like that IVF is really like abortion on steroids.
Trump is saying that he likes IVF. It's like, I don't think Trump knows what the fuck IVF is. Let's be honest here.
To Trump, IVF is fertility. It's like
more babies.
Yeah, it's more babies. It's help women who can't have babies but wants to have babies have babies. Yeah, he's not like going down and parsing all the nuances. And even if he did, he would be like, "Oh, well, that's not really like you can't really call that
like
abortion."
All the people who are pro-abortion are not going into all the nuances and looking at all the details and realizing how horrific it is. Or like, what if someone gets raped or incest? You know,
right?
And IVF itself is also kind of a fringe case anyway.
Right.
So the goal would be, and it's also because people are having kids later and later and later and later when they start having issues with fertility. So I don't know. I guess the goal, culturally speaking, over the long term is to try to get younger people to start getting married and having babies, and then you can kind of just let that thing phase off. I don't know. This is why I'm not in charge.
You can think of this as like a quadrant where you have more and less and good and bad. And so you can have more babies for a good reason. You can have more babies for a bad reason. You can have fewer babies for a good reason or fewer babies for a bad reason. And we've been in fewer babies for a bad reason territory for a long time. Now we're moving into more babies for a bad reason. But that's a progression. So the next thing you do is the vast majority of people prior to like a week ago had no idea what IVF actually was. They didn't have a motivation to be like, oh, that's evil. But then you go and you look and you're like, holy shit, this is evil. But now what you have to go against is people who their default approach is, well, more babies. We need to have more babies. I want to have babies. I can't have babies. I've got my balls are full of plastic. You know, like we've been completely weighed down and inhibited from having babies for so long. And you want to go tell them, well, no, actually, you can't have babies because here, listen to my autistic breakdown of You're going to have to do the long work of normalizing that conversation, which is going to require humility and self-sacrifice from you. I mean, if that's your cause, then you should go campaign against IVF.
And to your point about, like, you know, more babies for bad reason. Like, if you're in the 7th layer of hell, the 6th one probably looks like heaven to you, and directionally it's correct. You got to go that way if you want to get up to paradise or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Your two options when you're in hell is either hit the bottom or start going up, which means you've got to go through hell.
Yes. Hazael says, I know a girl in her early 20s who developed extreme endometriosis. She faces infertility, and IVF would be her only option to have a child to term.
Yeah.
So
it's sad.
real quick, just for, I think Hazael said earlier, he doesn't really know what's going on with IVF. Why is IVF so horrifying when you look into it?
Okay, so basically so if you take like the pro-life, we'll say principle, that being that life begins at conception, and you apply that to the IVF discussion, it starts to make sense why it's a problem. Because basically what you're doing is you're artificially taking like 5 eggs, you're fertilizing them with the sperm. So now you have effectively like it's 5
a conceived life.
If you have 5 conceived lives, most of them die. Some of them don't. The ones that don't are just frozen and put in like a shelf somewhere. Some of them are used for medical experimentation, etc. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the long and short of it, is that you're taking a bunch, you have 5 like conceived lives, and maybe one of those is viable, or maybe 6 of them is viable, or whatever. But, you can only have one. So you put the one in there, and then you gestate and you do all that stuff. And now you got a baby, but you also have like 5 other babies now,
Mm-hmm. And
that have no legal protection, no rights whatsoever. And there's something like 4 to 5 million of these basically frozen test tube babies that exist right now in the United States that have no legal protection, no rights or whatever, that
used for scientific experimentation and tissue generation and dark shit.
Dark shit.
Yeah.
Dork shit. Dork niggas.
Okay, let's keep it rolling here. We still got a whole bunch of stuff. Good IVF conversation.
So basically, you have to like abort. Like let's say you fertilize 5 eggs and one of them's viable, so you abort 4 in the process of having one. So it's like super abortion.
Mm-hmm.
But most people don't know that.
Right. Yeah, and because the thing is, most people don't share the opinion that life begins at conception. That's still not a full mainstream opinion.
And that's why people who are like pro-choice or whatever, they look at like the pro-life crowd who's also against IVF, and they think this is completely nonsensical because they're like, aren't you pro-life? And it's like, because they don't share the same presupposition that life begins at conception.
Right.
If you accept that, or you take that, at least for the sake of argument, then it's like, okay, everything else follows.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, and so there's ways, I suppose, you could say that IVF, but you only have one. So you don't produce all the extra ones, you just have the one. Well, I mean, that's going to make IVF a lot more expensive. And it's going to, I would say downstream from that artificially binding the sperm and the egg outside of a body and then implanting it into a body is not the same thing as it being implanted in the body. So like, who knows what sort of downstream effects could be a consequence of artificially creating life in that way.
Well,
it
and
just
like the
kind of
risks,
skeeves me out.
And not only for the children and all the problems that they could develop, they're at much higher risk for all sorts of issues. So is the mother, much higher risk of dying or having miscarriage, etc. The whole thing is not good.
Here's an interesting idea that Duff had said. Interesting question to take that further is, if it is conception when it happens in a test tube, is that actually conception? I would say if it's not actually conception, then it's even darker and more disturbing. Like, I don't think that makes it better. I don't think it's like, oh, well, it's not actually conception, so it doesn't matter, and it's only conception once it's implanted. Then what? Then you can just go
start
stick
farms.
a dick in a vagina, man. Like,
yeah. Because if it's not conception, then what's stopping people ethically from just like having farms of like test tube babies that turn into like slave clones or whatever,
right,
shoot into the moon or whatever, Like, have you read Destination Void? I have.
Yeah, right. It's getting real dystopian real fast.
Oh yeah.
And for the people who can't have babies of their own, it's not like, oh, well, you can't, then you're just doomed to never have children. Adoption is a really valuable pursuit. Like that's
Hazael says, I know several test tube babies my age. And like in those cases, it's like, okay, well, I don't think that makes like their existence illegitimate or anything like that. It's like, okay, I know somebody who is my age who was conceived when their mother was raped, like bad things happen. I guess the idea is that, let's maybe not be doing the bad things as much as possible.
Right. That's why I think the whole thing is...
if you get a kid out of it, then, I guess that's a blessing, but most people just don't know that this is the process, and the whole thing's really twisted.
And getting really combative and dogmatic about
they just
it for
have
that
4
reason
other dead siblings, right?
Yeah. Getting really combative and dogmatic about this for that reason, because it's such a difficult topic, it just demonstrates a lack of self-control and a lack of perspective, self-awareness, humility. There's nothing possibly good that can come from it.
And as Jay Song says, like, fix the food, fix infertility. Yeah,
yes.
Like all of these problems, 99% of it goes away if we like stop just mainlining Cresco.
Yeah, right. Okay, so Thomas Massie is out here nuking people. So he posted this video. He said, if Israel insists on destroying civilian targets in Lebanon, let them buy and build their own weapons. American taxpayers should not be funding this. This video, you've probably seen it on the screen. It's played a few times now. That is wild.
Is this is that like Building 7? What is that?
Right. Very interesting how it went down like that, isn't it?
Oh, Craig D beat me to it. Yeah, Building 7.
Yeah. So he tweeted this out, very based, and he got a reply from... I can't see the actual reply because it was from Jordan Schachtel, who has blocked me. Noted Israeli agent and insufferable shitlib. And Massie responds with, "Is this you?" He's basically accusing Massie of anti-Semitism. And Massie responds and just absolutely flushes him down the toilet.
We're putting together a lot of pro-Israel media through various social media channels that aren't the Israel Project's channel. So we have a lot of side projects that we're trying to influence the public debate with. So that's why it's a secretive thing, because we don't want people to know that these side projects are associated with the Israel Project.
TIP runs a collection of Facebook communities that cover topics ranging from history and the environment to current affairs and feminism. But their affiliations to the Israel Project are deliberately vague.
Why is it that they can't be connected to the Israel Project? I think it's because, like, we want to be people to view them as subjectively as possible. We have a team of like 13 people, and we're working on a lot of like videos, explainers. A lot of it is just random topics, and then maybe like 25% of it would be like Israel or Jewish based.
So you see, you're getting a little look behind the curtain at how the info operations work. And here, our beloved based congressman is well noted for his conversation with Tucker Carlson, where he revealed that every single congressman and senator has an AIPAC handler. And he's now escalating his game. Massie's power levels are rising, and it's beautiful to see. Josh Ham said, he says the people arguing about IVF would be the same people who spurg about BTC. How dare all these normal people not understand this esoteric shit that I've studied for decades? Yeah, it's a really good comparison. Andrew's taking Augie to the pumpkin patch now. Have fun, man. Let's get some pumpkins in the chat for Augie. Autumn maxing. So I mentioned this story last night in my conversation with Jason on the.
I've got like 10 minutes left, and then I got to go take my kids trunk or treating.
Ooh, you're going
fucking stupid, man.
Why are you going trunk or treating a week early?
Because that's when they're having their trunk or treat. We just need to have trick or treating like normal people. We just need to do that.
Yeah,
we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So the only Halloween experience that my kids can get is like going to some trunk or treat. It's so gay. Because only like on actual Halloween night, there's like 2 people on the whole block who actually have, are handing out candy.
Oh, that's a shame. We don't live in a civilization anymore.
No, we don't, man. Take me back.
We've collapsed.
That's why I'm dressed like Mike Wazowski.
That makes sense. Ah. Duff wants to go drunk or treating.
Oh.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Sign me up. Okay.
Yeah. The activity for
I
the
changed
dads.
my mind.
So I mentioned this last night on the conversation with Jason, talking about Trump being installed. I brought this up briefly while we were talking about the cartels and what the we're anticipating more and more that there is going to be a lot of open hostility developing between the U.S. and various elements to the South. And this is, I think, one big part of it. So Nomos Events tweeted, the U.S. is having 50% year-on-year cargo theft increases. 330 incidents costing $12.5 million in 2019 versus 925 in 2024, costing $76 million. Drivers have no stop rest stops. The entire U.S. overland logistics network is being destroyed by endemic theft. So 2024 first quarter supply chain risk trends analysis. In the first quarter of 2024, criminal activities impacting the logistics and transportation industry reached new highs, even amidst the sustained crime wave that began in late 2022. What an interesting time. CargoNet documented a staggering 925 incidents, marking a substantial 46% increase compared to the first quarter of 2023 and a concerning 10% rise from the fourth quarter of 2023. The average stolen shipment value in the first quarter of 2024 was $281,757, while the declared total value was $76 million. By extrapolating the average shipment value across events without a declared value, CargoNet estimates that a total of $154.6 million worth of goods were stolen during this period. While reported events increased in most states, the most significant spikes were observed in California, with a 72% year-over-year increase, Illinois with a 126% year-over-year increase, and Texas with a 22% year-over-year increase. Then this is first quarter 2019 cargo theft trends. In the first quarter of 2019, CargoNet recorded 330 supply chain risk intelligence events in the U.S. and Canada. Of those incidents, 52% involved a stolen vehicle and 42% involved stolen cargo, among several other kinds of events, such as identity theft, missing drivers, fictitious pickups, and other police intelligence matters. In total, CargoNet recorded 140 cargo thefts across the U.S. and Canada in first quarter 2019, a 22% decrease from first quarter 2018. The average cargo value per theft event was $145,772 for a total estimated loss of $12.8 million across the U.S. and Canada in this analysis period. CargoNet is a very risk business, a V-risk business. So this is $12.8 million in 2019 first quarter compared to $154.6 million. So what is that, like 12.5% increase?
That's
or
good.
12.5 times increase. And then another headline here, cargo theft spiked over 57% in 2023 versus 2022, new data shows. There's absolutely overlap with cartel activity in this. Some of this is just simple, brigandry, just hooliganry. But this is absolutely, there's cartel activity involved in all of this. And this is part of the reason why large segments of the ruling class have decided that immigration is actually a really big issue. And securing the southern border is a really big issue. All of this stuff has massively increased under Biden. So this wasn't an issue on most people's minds in 2020, but it definitely is now.
How much fun would it be to be like a modern day pirate?
I think, yeah, like to get like
listen to sea shanties while you drive your Tesla up to some trucker and cut open the back door, open it up, and grabbing like flat screens out of there.
I was thinking it would be fun to be like a modern day privateer, get a letter of marque and reprisal, and then you go escort the truckers, the trucker convoys. You're start blasting when the pickup trucks pull up. The Toyota Hilux pulls up alongside the truck. I just started blasting.
I'm the trash man. I just like run out there and throw trash everywhere.
Okay, got another thread here from good friend of the show, Ford, who's down in North Carolina with the OGC assisting in the recovery effort. He said there's a desire to digitize our world. In the realm of business, and especially in project management, there's a need to report on key performance indicators that are showing others what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it. This is where a lot of the PowerPoint jobs come from. There needs to be a documentation for what you're doing, somebody who is able to analyze the data of what you're doing, and then somebody who puts it together and presents it to the higher-ups to let you know what's going on. How useful is that really? It allows you to audit yourself. It allows you to see any obvious bottlenecks that are going on, but you would be able to spot these if you were familiar with the ground game and actively managing the business that you're running. So the manifestation of these kinds of jobs like this is actually a product of like even the very existence of these jobs is a product of managerialism and over bureaucratizing things.
Yeah.
And the people running the company getting more and more removed from the actual operations of the company. This is low trust business environment stuff. You have to have, everyone has to document every last little thing that they do, and there has to be HR oversight and all this stuff because there isn't an innate, fundamental state of high trust among employee and an employer and then employee to employee. Small businesses have the benefit of being extremely agile. Small businesses who have the benefit of being extremely agile are able to outpace a lot of large corporations simply because they don't have these reporting metrics that they have to complete. This is the premise for the Lean Startup book. But how useful is an itemized inventory in the event of a disaster? How useful is a specifics of worked hours after a flood has wiped out the area? You have to focus on what's actually important, which is enabling operations of different orgs. Orgs need to be able to source stuff that's desperately needed. They need to be able to understand their own operations. They need to be able to task and purpose their own people. If you're running an org, this is your big concern, not KPIs and man hours. Everything can be analog here. Operations don't need documentation. The only documents that you need to be tracking is on a particular tasker to make sure it got done. This doesn't need to be digital, and it's probably slower if it's digital. If you peruse startup Twitter, you'll see tons of stories about places that were running operations out of Google Sheets. They were doing things that don't scale. That's the kind of mindset you need, more immediate and less managerial. The managing laws have slowed down operations. This is a concession that needs to be made because you can't just have people show up and say they're part of an org. However, drafting bylaws, contacting a lawyer, setting up everything slows down the helping people part. Maybe I'm off base, but managerialism is literally killing people.
Oh, yeah.
Go out and conquer. So shout out to Ford. He's going to keep sending us updates on what's going on down there, and we're going to keep amplifying them to you guys.
Good deal.
Relatedly, there it is, folks. Governor Roy Cooper. We're going to hold you responsible for this guy.
Okay.
Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina just confirmed that certain areas won't be rebuilt, and they're buying out entire communities affected by climate change.
Evil. Absolutely wicked.
You know, North Carolina had two 500-year storms within 20 months of each other in the same place. Mm-hmm. We just had a 1,000-year storm event in southeastern North Carolina, 1,000-year. We know that that's not true anymore. We know that these events are going to become more and more intense. So we've spent a lot of time being smart about the way we approach rebuilding. We go into communities, we work with them, we have plans for local governments. You know, in some areas, you just shouldn't build back. Mm-hmm. And we've been able to convince certain communities and people that buyouts are better, and you create green space that soaks up flood water that comes and protects surrounding areas. When you do build back, you have to invest more in order for property to be more resilient. But when it is elevated, we even saw in some of the storms subsequent that those properties were unaffected because we had made them more resilient. So those are the challenges that we're facing every day. And it's one of the reasons why we've been able to get a number of Republican local officials, particularly on the coast, who said, okay, guys, climate change is here. We know that we have to do something about it. We know that the United States is The leader in the world needs to set an example. North Carolina needs to set an example. And so we've gotten a number of them on board. There's still a lot of climate denialists out there.
Fuck that guy.
This guy is going to be very fortunate if he dies of natural causes.
Yeah, no kidding.
What the hell does this even mean? Climate change is here. What does that even mean? What is that sentence?
Man.
What do those words put together? What does that mean?
Why did you play this right now? Because I want to get mad and rant about this, but I gotta go.
Rant quick.
I'll just fuck this guy. That'll sum it up.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Later, everybody. I gotta go.
See you, Mike.
See ya.
Oh, it's very good to have Big Mike here today. Yeah, sorry for the rage bait here, folks. This is just... I've kind of held off on this, on going too deep into this this little particular rabbit hole because it's just so astonishingly enraging. Whether it's I saw VAI up here said, okay, now this makes me believe they are artificially intensifying the hurricanes. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're creating them. I know that they can create them, but I have no doubt that they're artificially intensifying them. And I don't think that this is like some really super coordinated thing that they know how to do. They're just kind of like, hey, let's see what happens. Like, this is how else are you going to test your hurricane amplification technology? When there's a hurricane, let's amplify it and see what happens. Oh shit, we just killed a whole bunch of people. Oh man. And then there's someone else who's like, hey, here's an opportunity. Look at that. And it's able to form into a completely coherent, like pathologically, comically evil plot because of people like this faggot. This profoundly evil man. He's the one who facilitates it all. These people must go. They will go. There's no question about whether or not they'll go. The only question is whether they will wise up enough to go peacefully. Because if they don't, then they will go unpeacefully, let's just say. Witt says, I still think they flooded Northwest Iowa on purpose this summer. Yeah, I would have no doubt. They know how to... Remember Dubai had that massive flood out of nowhere, out in the middle of the desert, and they came out and they're like, oh, whoops, our bad. We did a little cloud seeding operation, and it kind of got out of hand. And it's very obvious that this technology exists. It's very obvious that they know how to do it. They've known how to do it for a long time. Witt says Colonel McGregor had a legit guy talk about how they're steering and intensifying storms. Yeah, all this stuff is coming out. It's going to be mainstream, I would say, within a year, maybe less. Straight Buster says, I looked into it a bit. The C-130s they send into the hurricane to take measurements were the same ones that did the cloud seeding in Vietnam. Interesting. Very interesting. Ian Carroll says, now we know Trump wanted to nuke the hurricane during his term. Yeah, isn't it funny that he says these things that seem completely off the wall, and then it turns out, there's actually a little something to that. And what are Trump's instincts? Hey, there's a gigantic storm coming. Let's destroy it and prevent it from assaulting our people. Imagine that. Imagine that just bare minimum threshold of not using your weather amplification technology to murder your own people. Again, all of this is facilitated by having a weak patsy like Roy Cooper in place. If you're fed up, so is Tucker Carlson.
We wonder why we're getting all these hurricanes. It's not global warming, sorry. It's the trannies in the White House. And we wonder why.
He said it. That's a setup for several Tucker clips that I have here. Tucker was just in fine form at the TPUSA event. I'm going to play a couple of these for you. This first one's just great to listen to Tucker, and then the next one is when he really got barnstorming. Share the screen right here.
So here's my perspective. I think Donald Trump's going to win. Which is amazing. And that's why I'm here. I'm not here because he's going to win. I'm here because I'm so thrilled by what I've watched over the past 9 years. This is the end of a redemption arc. I've really never seen anybody treated like Donald Trump was treated, ever. Anybody, ever. Attack him. I watched this all up close. Defame him. Indict him. Arrest him. Let him get shot in the face. And he's going to win anyway. Oh!
Love that crowd pop. Now here's where Tucker really started going. Well, okay. First of all, I gotta play this one. No, actually, we'll wait on that. Let's speed this up a bit because this is a 5-minute clip. And pull the volume up.
It has flipped. The story the country tells itself about reality has flipped. None of the normal people are supporting the Democratic machine. Tim Walz is supporting the Democratic machine. A man you would never allow to babysit your own children. That's the archetype. It's the party of weirdos, of envy, of hate, of resentment, of bitterness, of weakness, of a total lack of creativity. It's a party of conformity. It's a party of the machine, where it doesn't matter who the candidate is because individuals are immaterial. All that matters is the collective. That's the Soviet model. And opposing them is the rest of the country, slowly waking up to the fact that these people have no moral authority whatsoever. They have no legitimacy in a democracy where the government must rule by the consent of the governed. They have no consent. And the way that they've treated this country over the past 4 years is the most shocking thing I've ever seen in 55 years. To allow millions of people, mostly young men with no skills and no English, into our country illegally, and then fly them around at our expense and give them phones and put them on welfare programs that no American citizen can get, is the most insulting, yeah, boo, but it's worse than boo. That's the biggest crime in the history of the United States of America. And it takes incredible stones, incredible gall for the people who did that to stand up there on a stage and give you a lecture about how you're immoral. It's too much. And so that's the second important thing about this election, okay? The first is every person in this room needs to understand you are not in a despised minority. You are in an incredibly gentle and tolerant majority who put up with this crap for way too long. As they insulted not only you, but the memory of your ancestors who died for this country. They tore down statues to their memory. People have never built anything in their lives. They went out of their way to humiliate you and spit on you and the graves of your ancestors. And that's not an exaggeration, they did that. And this country is so nice, it's so polite, it's so thoughtful and empathetic and sweet. It's the kind of country that loves dogs and gives directions to strangers that we put up with it for 4 years. But we can't anymore. We just can't. And we can't for 2 reasons. The first reason they can't put up with it for 1 more minute is because it's just not justice. It's not. It's not justice. It's unfair. You cannot reward the most parasitic, useless, violent, nasty, aggressive people in your country. You can't make them the richest. You just can't. It's just wrong. In a fair, decent country, the people who work the hardest, who have the highest level of talent, who are the most creative, who are the most decent to their neighbors, who give the biggest tips to waitresses, those people should be successful. Those people should be revered. It shouldn't be Larry Fink. Are you joking? Kamala Harris shouldn't have a job. She has no skills. How did we wind up with a system where Kamala Harris, you couldn't change the tire on your truck, much less drive it? How did she wind up at the top of the pyramid? And then once she's there, she lectures you like you did something. It's too much. You can't allow that. It's an offense against the truth, against reality, and against justice itself. And the second reason you can't allow it is very familiar to anyone who has children, which is if you allow it, you will encourage more of it. If you allow people to get away with things that are completely over the top and outrageous, if you allow your 2-year-old to smear the contents of his diapers on the wall of your living room, and you do nothing about it, if you allow your 14-year-old to light a joint at the breakfast table, If you allow your hormone-addled 15-year-old daughter to like slam the door of her bedroom and give you the finger, you're going to get more of it. And those kids are going to wind up in rehab. It's not good for you, and it's not good for them. No. There has to be a point at which dad comes home.
Listen to that pop.
Yeah, that's right. Dad comes home. And he's pissed.
Ah! And then he continued. This is, and this got kind of weird. He knew what he was doing. This got kind of weird. Whoops. Make sure I share the right tab here. You pull the volume up.
Point at which dad comes home. Yeah, that's right. Dad comes home. And he's pissed. Dad is pissed. He's not vengeful. He loves his children. Disobedient as they may be, he loves them. Because they're his children, they live in his house. But he's very disappointed in their behavior. And he's going to have to let them know. He's going to have to get to your room right now and think about what you did. And when dad gets home, you know what he says? You've been a bad girl. You've been a bad little girl and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now. And no, it's not going to hurt me more than it hurts you. No, it's not. I'm not going to lie. This is going to hurt you a lot more than it hurts me. And you earned this. You're getting a vigorous spanking because you've been a bad girl.
You could see like the little smirk playing around on the corners of his lips. $2 super chat from Andrew Starr. Thank you, sir. He says Tucker launched ALP. He posted about it somewhere. I couldn't find anything. I went and checked my email. I am on Tucker Carlson's email list, so I get regular updates, and I haven't seen anything about it. I saw him mention that it was going to be dropped in November, but if something has happened beforehand, he hasn't tweeted about it recently. Do us a favor and find that if that's real, because I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting to place my order. Saw a little bit of news that apparently there's something. It's a partnership in some capacity with the makers of free pouches. So I'm curious to see if this is just strictly just a white labeling, like they're just going to be white labeling the free stuff, or free is FRE. If they're going to be white labeling that, or if there's like, I don't know, sharing manufacturing or something like that. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I'm very curious to find out. You've been a bad girl and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now. Big Mad Men vibes. Here's some more from the same, him talking about Elon from the same speech. This is at TPUSA in Georgia.
Elon Musk, who single-handedly saved the First Amendment to the Constitution, which, let me remind you, is not just a feature of America, it's the basis of America. It's the First Amendment for a reason. It's what separates the free from the enslaved. Slaves are not allowed to say what they think. Free men have God-given right to do so and will. And this is the only country on earth in which that's guaranteed. And without Elon Musk, it wouldn't be, because he stands alone as the owner of a media platform that is still open. There's only one, and it's X. It's foreign-born Elon Musk. And then for him to come out, and by the way, just for the record, I've taken not a dollar from Elon Musk, okay? It's not a paid advertisement, it's just an observation. And this is heartfelt gratitude. And when you see the richest man on planet Earth stand up there in a t-shirt and start jumping around on stage, he's also one of the biggest federal contractors. People say, oh, he's got FU money. No, it's just the opposite. There is no such thing as FU money. The more money you have, the more vested you are. It's only FU poverty, actually, is the truth. And Elon Musk has more to lose than any living American by taking the position that he did, and he did it anyway. And so what's the message? If the person who's created the most, not just piles of cash, he's not Larry Fink, he's not worshiping money like our finance class, he's building things.
Finance class.
That guy is for Donald Trump, and not only not ashamed of it, he's jumping around in a t-shirt. I can see his belly button, he's so excited. Then maybe I'm not alone. Maybe I'm not the freak. Maybe what you're really watching is the tyranny of MSNBC, a channel with virtually no viewers, a channel on which almost every single person has a personal life so grotesquely weird, if you knew the details, you'd call for their arrest.
Woo! Oh, man. Tucker's getting riled, man. Tucker gets it. Tucker is our guy. Can you fathom the black pillars are just eternally BTFO? Tucker's compromised. Elon's compromised. Trump is compromised. We live in a great time. So next, I've got some RFK stuff. At the same event, RFK was providing his own commentary on a number of issues. Had to do the same thing, bring up the volume. RFK is easier to listen to a little faster.
That Donald Trump had, during his presidency, Donald Trump learned that there was a Mexican-American soldier who had been murdered at Fort Hood, and that the Pentagon was refusing to pay her medical expenses, her funeral expenses. And Donald Trump said, if they won't do it, then I'm going to do it myself. And he paid her expenses out of his own pocket. And in order to discredit this extraordinary gesture of love and generosity by the American president, a soldier who he had never met before, John Kelly invented a story that he had made an insensitive remark about Mexicans. Unfortunately for Kelly, there were 3 people in the room at that time who all said that Kelly was lying, that it was an outright fabrication. So we need to wonder when Kelly invents this story that says that, where he said that President Trump wanted generals around him who were like Hitler's generals, which of course he didn't say. We already know that Kelly is a liar. And that Kelly invented other stories that were derogatory about the president. And these are the kind of stories you're seeing from all the generals and the intelligence agents who do not want to see Donald Trump in office again.
Now let me go back to this other video from, shut up. Where was it here? Back here. So now here's this thing from Kamala Harris. I've got a tab related to this. So this is her speech behind the seal of the Vice President of the United States. So she's making an official statement as the sitting Vice President. And she's using this opportunity to campaign and to go after her opponent in the presidential election. Now, I know that like procedural violations at this point just nobody gives a shit. But this is a per se violation of the Hatch Act, the thing that they tried to stick on Trump. The sheer audacity of these people, like think about that story with John Kelly. Like imagine the audacity that you would have to just plainly invent a story that can be easily repudiated and is easily repudiated. That's not just made up, but it paints the truth in the exact opposite light. The story he tells is that Trump refused, like offered that he was going to pay for it and then found out what the price was, and he's like, I'm not going to pay that much for a fucking Mexican. And the actual truth is the exact opposite. That he paid for it out of his own pocket because the official channels wouldn't manage it. Think about the frickin' audacity that these people have. And now here, she's giving, this is indicative of audacity, but even more than that, it's indicative of incompetence. This shows you that there are no professionals in the room. They're like, all right, Kamala, you've got to go give this vice president speech, and so we're in campaign mode, so now you need to do a campaign pitch and ratchet up, escalate the rhetoric more than ever. This is profoundly politically incompetent. Listen to what she says.
So yesterday we learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired four-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because He does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens. And let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify, in his mind, as the enemy within, like judges, like journalists, like nonpartisan election officials. It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. This is a window into who Donald Trump really is, from the people who know him best, from the people who worked with him side by side in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room. And it is clear from John Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one and vowed to use the military as his personal militia to carry out his personal and political vendettas. Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable. And in a second term, people like John Kelly would not be there to be the guardrails against his propensities and his actions. Those who once tried to stop him from pursuing his worst impulses would no longer be there, and no longer be there to rein him in. So the bottom line is this: we know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power. The question in 13 days will be, what do the American people want? Thank you.
She made that campaign speech behind the vice presidential seal. Orrin McIntyre correctly identified this, among others. He correctly identified that this here is the desperation attempt to secure another attempt. The desperation attempt to secure another attempt. This is an open call for taking him out. It's not like coded or anything like that. This is an open call for someone to take him out. Why? Because that's the only way to stop him. That's the position that they've found themselves in. Now, this story that had been rumored for a while, this whole thing, the Hortler and he said nasty thing about Mexican. This whole thing had been rumored. Oh, there's this big drop that's coming. Oh, it's coming. Oh, Trump's going to be done for. And this is what it amounted to. Jack Posobiec says, breaking, Axios, Bloomberg, CBS, and CNN allies have said they were approached about the story 3 weeks ago, and they all passed, per a White House official. So they made up this story, and they were laundering it around, trying to get the major organizations to take it. And they looked at it, they were like, nope, not touching that one. Here's RFK responding to it.
Today, in her post,
hold on. Volume up. A little speedy.
in her speech, she said that President Trump was going to turn the U.S. military against the American public and use the public to promote his agenda. How many of you think that is true? Well, what's interesting to me is that the Biden-Harris administration has done something 2 weeks ago that has never been done in American history, which is to send exactly legal force, to send a directive to the Pentagon, changing the law to make it legal for the U.S. military to use lethal force against American citizens on American soil. Technically, now it's legal for the U.S. military, under this directive, it will become legal for the U.S. military to shoot and kill Americans who engage in political protests because they disagree with policies in the White House. I'm not making this up. Any of you can look it up. This is a Democratic initiative. This did not come during the Trump administration. This did not come from Donald Trump. It came from the Democratic Party. And that's why I left the Democratic Party.
Yes. Witt says they are overusing Hitler like doctors overusing antibiotics. It's losing effectiveness quickly. And this is exactly what I was going to reply with, Duff. He says the best part about calling Trump Hitler for a decade is that it makes Trump cooler and the rest of America Hitler curious. Right. Right. That's the only thing that it's doing. It's normalizing Hitler, which means it's normalizing sympathy for Hitler, recognizing people beginning to be like, Hitler, FDR, Churchill, whatever. All the way up to much more sympathy. Now, this is what he's talking about. Shout out to Gray Zone Intel on Twitter, Mike Shelby. He says, I'm finally digging into this DoD Directive 5240.01, which is an update from 2007. And this actually goes way deeper than anyone else is covering. So this is DoD Directive 5240.01, DoD intelligence and intelligence-related activities and defense intelligence component assistance to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities. Dated September 27, 2024. Originating component is Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security. He says, I'll give you part of the Cliff's Notes. This directive expressly permits defense intelligence components to conduct covert activities inside the United States under Title 50 authorization if approved by President Biden. For the bozos who say this isn't true, this is a screenshot of Item K under Section 1.2 on policy, and it says Title 50 is implemented on the very first page. So, Item K says the defense intelligence components will only conduct or provide support for the conduct of covert activities, 1, in times of war declared by Congress, 2, during a period covered by a report from President to Congress in accordance with Public Law 93-148, or when such actions have been approved by the President and directed by the Secretary of Defense. And he says it was an update from 2007. It contains new language clearly authorizing DI covert activities, implements Title 50 programs into the directive, and updated 38 days before an election with existential consequences, according to the current admin. Amuse says the language change is concerning. They made it so convoluted. I think they can basically justify killing anyone for any reason. And Mike says it's 17 pages of legalese millspeak. They tried to obscure the entire point of the objective, of the directive. So that's what he's referring to. All right. Let's keep it moving here. Got another dark one. Don't worry, I've got some good stuff for you later on, but some of this stuff needs to be amplified. So Elon, our ex-lord, not ex-lord, but our ex-lord, he amplified this. He says, tragic. This is Billboard Chris. I'm at UCLA and I just met Clementine, who recently detransitioned. So let me speed this one up a wee bit as well, because this is another long one. And I'm going to, while you guys are listening to this, I am going to relieve myself briefly, so I will be back.
What's your name?
My name's Clementine.
Nice to meet you.
I've actually seen your stuff online, and I'm a huge fan. I was on puberty blockers. I started when I was 12, and I was on testosterone from 14 to 17, and I got top surgery at 17. Totally messed my life up. So I just want to say you're doing a good thing. I can't believe people disagree with you on this. As a former child transitioner, I'm just appalled that people have anything to question you about. So, nice
well, I'm so sorry you had to go through all that. I'm glad you are through it now. Thank you so much for speaking up. That's extremely valuable because a lot of people are afraid to.
Yeah.
So, do you mind if we have a little conversation about
course,
it?
Yeah.
Okay, come on in this way just a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hi.
So, your name again?
My name's Clementine.
Clementine. So Clementine went on puberty blockers at what age?
12.
And you detransitioned at?
I detransitioned earlier this year, actually, but I'd been going off testosterone since about 17 because it gave me psychosis.
When did they put you on testosterone?
I was 13.
Wow. And when did you have a double mastectomy?
I had a double mastectomy at 14. I'm currently going through the process of getting reconstructive surgery, and it was harder to get that approved. I actually wasn't able to get it approved by my insurance.
Right.
But it was much harder to get surgery for that than it was to actually get the original top surgery procedure.
For everyone watching this who says this isn't happening, well, it happened to Clementine. At 14, a double mastectomy, puberty blockers at 12, testosterone at 13. How old are you now?
I'm 20 now. I just turned 20.
Have you ever talked to anyone about suing?
I can't disclose what's going on, but yeah, it's
okay. Because I'm here to help you find someone if you need someone.
Yeah, I've spoken. Do you know Campbell Miller Payne?
I do.
I've talked to them a bunch.
Fantastic. So, Campbell Miller Payne is a law firm for dads in Texas who all left their previous law firms and started a new one just to sue for kids and young people like Clementine who've been harmed by this madness. And these are great guys. They could have done anything to make a bunch of money, but they started a law firm. They left all their previous firms. They have 18 kids between them. And they're going to cause a lot of waves. I know some good lawsuits coming too, which we aren't allowed to announce yet.
Yeah, I really
but
hope so.
That's one of the way out of this mess we've gotten into.
I don't know how a child could consent to the loss of their fertility.
Yeah.
Children can't conceptualize that, and I think people don't understand that.
So what got you into this in the first place?
I was sexually abused as a child, and that was totally ignored, but I started having a lot of negative feelings about my body around puberty, and I was egged on by some guidance counselors that I might be transgender, and I later decided that I was really a boy and my life would be so much easier because of all this abuse that I had experienced because of being a woman, and I totally just rejected womanhood because I thought that all that it meant for me was pain. Yeah, that's kind of how I got there, but getting out of it, getting out of it was a really difficult process for me, but mostly it was just getting the right therapy. I went to DBT therapy, and we never discussed my gender. We only discussed my sexual abuse, and after I dealt with that, I realized I didn't want to do this anymore, and the loss of my fertility and my body just started to really sink in, and I realized, like, oh my God, I built this entire persona around misogyny.
Do you know for sure that you've lost your fertility?
I'm not 100% sure, but
you were on
I'm not the
testosterone
most
for
hopeful.
4
I never
years.
went through female puberty, so yeah.
Right. I'm so sorry, but thank you so much for speaking up.
Yeah,
It's
thank you
extremely
for
brave.
speaking
It's extremely powerful. I'm so sorry it was done to you, but this is going to help other people not
I'm so glad
to
you're
fall
doing
down
what
this
you're
rabbit
doing.
hole.
Keep going.
One last question, and just come in a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
Before you started puberty blockers, you've just shared with me this sexual abuse that happened to you before you started on those.
Yeah.
Did anyone ask you about that?
No, not was that brought up once during the meeting. I was only asked, do I like hanging out with boys? Do I get fit in better with boys? What kind of things am I into? Just really surface level questions. And I was prescribed puberty blockers 30 minutes into my appointment after being out for 4 months.
First appointment?
Yes.
With?
Dr. Joanne.
30 minutes into the appointment. Now notice whose name she mentions here.
After being out for 4 months.
First appointment?
Yes.
With?
Dr. Joanna Olson Kennedy at Los Angeles Children's Hospital.
Johanna Olson Kennedy. I've talked a lot about her, and I'm going to put more about her underneath this video. She's running the busiest gender clinic in the country at Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. She received a grant from the NIH a few years ago for $5.7 million, and part of that grant application, she asked for approval to give opposite sex hormones to kids as young as 8 years old.
Yeah,
she is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, gender ghoul in the United States of America. Did she talk to your parents?
She did, and she told them the same thing that she tells everybody, that I was deeply suicidal, and that if they didn't let me transition, I would be at high risk for suicide. And I only attempted to kill myself after I transitioned.
So she convinced them that they had two options, a dead daughter or a live son?
Yes.
Did she even use those words?
She did use those exact words.
Wow. Give me a hug.
Thank you for talking to me.
Thank you for talking to me. All right. I'll see you later.
You see the guy throwing up a Roman back here.
All right. See you later.
Here's the thing. Well, okay, I'm just going to play this. Now, I don't know if YouTube is going to tolerate this. I think this is probably the closest I've come to pushing the envelope here. But we're pressing forward. Hit the like button for me. We're at 76 likes. We got 111 watching. And welcome, Kevin Hagen. Mr. Biggins just became a member of the King Pilled. If you would like to watch the conversation that I had with Jason Miranchuk yesterday about Trump being installed, vengeful son versus the prodigal son, and if you want to see Jason cry, then you can become a channel member for $5. You got to do it from a desktop browser, but only $5 a month. You too can become one of the King Pilled, and you can watch that stream. I'll end up releasing it to Gen Pop probably some point next week. But if you want to watch it now, then that's the way to do it. So this is Johanna Olson Kennedy.
Right? But so what we do know is that adolescents actually have the capacity to make a reasoned, logical decision. And here's the other thing about chest surgery. If you want breasts at a later point in your life, you can go and get them. Right?
Johanna Olson Kennedy previously received a $5.7 million grant from the NIH for research into transitioning children. This research included giving cross-sex hormones to 8-year-olds. For those wondering, Clementine simply misspoke when she said 17 in the first part of our chat. The double mastectomy was at 14, as she said later in the talk. Here's her, Clementine underscore FB is her on Twitter. He says, on a personal note, I'd only been at UCLA for a couple minutes when I met Clementine, and I'm once again blown away by these coincidences which keep happening. I can't even begin to explain them all. Those who know me know what I'm talking about. Whatever it is, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing until this abuse is history. And you can support his efforts here, billboardchris.com. So, make sure I'm on the right window here. For a little more about this doctor, Robbie Starbuck says, wow, the U.S. government funded a $9.7 million study where they gave puberty blockers to kids in an effort to prove that it was healthy for kids to be transitioned. The study proved that it wasn't good for the kids, though. Now they refuse to release the study because the lead doctor is afraid that it will be used to ban sex changes for kids. These people are evil. Wonder which doctor? U.S. study, this is the New York Times, U.S. study on puberty blockers goes unpublished because of politics, doctor says. They cry out as they strike you. The leader of the long-running study said that the drugs did not improve mental health in children with gender distress and that the finding might be weaponized by opponents of the care. You mean they might recognize the results of it? An influential doctor and advocate of adolescent gender treatment said that she had not published a long-awaited study of puberty-blocking drugs because of the charged American political environment. The doctor, Johanna Olson Kennedy, began the study in 2015 as part of a broader multi-million-dollar federal project on transgender youth. She and colleagues recruited 95 children from across the country and gave them puberty blockers, which stave off the permanent physical changes, like breasts or a deepening voice, that could exacerbate their gender distress, known as dysphoria. In the 9 years since the study was funded by the National Institutes of Health, and as medical care for this small group of adolescents became a searing issue in American politics, Dr. Olson Kennedy's team has not published the data. Asked why, she said the findings might fuel the kind of political attacks that have led to bans of the youth gender treatments in more than 20 states, one of which will soon be considered by the Supreme Court. I do not want our work to be weaponized, she said. It has to be exactly on point, clear, and concise, and that takes time. She said that she intends to publish the data, but that the team had also been delayed because the NIH had cut some of the project's funding. She attributed that cut, too, to politics, which the NIH denied. The broader project has received $9.7 million in government support to date. Dr. Olson Kennedy is one of the country's most vocal advocates of adolescent gender treatments and has served as an expert witness in many legal challenges to the state bans. She said she was concerned the study's results could be used in court to argue that, quote, we shouldn't use blockers because it doesn't impact them, referring to transgender adolescents. Simon Van Dyke says, this proves that most studies are just government money laundering for the university buddies. They fund all these studies and regardless of the cost, only publish those that support their worldview. Brandon Walsh says, all our solutions are Fed posts. And I'll just add to that they're only Fed posts for now. Some people need to be brought up on charges, and that is the graceful response. That's the graceful option. That's the compassionate option. Paul Fahrenheit in the chat, $2 super chat. Thank you, man. He says, once the Astrolabe is done, catch Pony Express Radio tonight at 8. You cannot miss Pony Express Radio, the old Glory Club channel. And maybe are we getting a hint that Paul Fahrenheit will be on it? I listen to every episode, so I'm not going to miss it tonight. Make sure you guys don't either. So Kamala had a big town hall on CNN. This was supposed to be her coming out. This is her planting her flag, establishing herself as the presumptive president. And instead, she just got annihilated by herself. Anderson Cooper facilitated it, but she just nuked herself. Reports out of the White House after this are that they are in shambles.
Is there something you could point to in your life, political life, or in your life in the last 4 years that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes, and they range from, if you've ever parented a child, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I mean, I probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question.
Is there something you can point to in your life, political life or in your life?
Is there something you can point to that's a mistake? Well, it'd be a mistake to not be well informed on issues. So are you saying your mistake is that you're not well informed on issues? Look at her face. This is the most miserable person on the planet. No one is more unhappy about what's happening in her life right now than Kamala Harris. She's talking to Anderson Cooper. Brendan Daly says, this dumb bitch might lose every state if voters see this.
So I may not be quick to have the answer as soon as you ask it about a specific policy issue sometimes, because I'm going to want to research it. I'm going to want to study it. I'm kind of a nerd sometimes, I confess. So I may not.
The fakest person I've ever seen. I'm a kind of a nerd sometimes. This is a 60-year-old woman who's trying to LARP as a millennial. Because that's all she's surrounded by now, is just millennials. Those are the only people who are still with her. So remember how Axios and Bloomberg and CNN and CBS, they all were approached with that story and they were like, nope, not touching it. Here's the LA Times. Real quick, 16 more likes needed. He's still got 109 watching and 84 likes. Give us 16 more likes, please. Please, please, please. And Oinks in the chat. Shout out to Pig Dirk. Oinks in the chat. Come on, chat. Oinks in the chat. Straight Buster says, I'll continue to posit that she never even wanted to be VP. Yeah, I would believe it. So the LA Times, an LA Times editor quits over blocked Kamala endorsement. I shared with you guys yesterday, David Sachs highlighting the fact that the LA Times, for the first time in like 20 years, has refused to endorse a candidate. The Los Angeles Times editorial board chief has resigned after the owner blocked a planned presidential endorsement for Kamala. Editor Marielle Garza revealed the paper's billionaire owner, Dr. Sun Xiong, halted the endorsement without explanation to readers. The paper has endorsed Democrats since 2008. Garza, in her resignation letter, I want to make it clear that I am not okay with us being silent. Owner claims the board failed to provide requested analysis of both candidates' policies. So reading between the lines here, our based Asian was like, give me an analysis of the two candidates. And they were like, two candidates? He's not even a candidate. There is no analysis. And he's like, all right, well, we're not going to be officially endorsing anyone. The chain got yanked, and Marielle Garza, this is Marielle Garza, apparently. She's very upset about it. Elon says, good for Patrick. Simon Van Dyke says, I'm glad someone's willing to take a stand. If Dr. Sun Xiong asked for a complete analysis of both candidates and they just pencil whipped it because we already endorsed Democrats, then he made the right choice. Laziness should not be rewarded. He wanted the endorsement to be nonpartisan on the grounds of policy, and they were supposed to go over each candidate's 4 years in office and couldn't because then they would have to endorse Trump on those grounds. Wanted to be an activist over an editor. Correct. The drumbeat continues. So I shared with you guys some stuff from Seth Keshel yesterday about the election. This is one of the things that I was digging into, looking at a bunch of the numbers, the polling, and such. And he mentioned that I'm not certain a front door rig is in the cards at this point. And Jonathan David asked, what stops it from being in the cards this time? And he said, lack of massive mail ballot volume, massive eyes on, massive narrative shift, loss of minority voting coalition, massive rural and GOP turnout, bellwethers, trends, indicators, predictors. Narratives are being set to try and make a move to delegitimize Trump's victory, potentially to hold up certification, or even plant phony election crimes, projection. And I think this last point is very good, because I believe this is the direction that we're going to see them ultimately pivoting, is Trump is going to win some of these swing states, and their only hope is going to be to claim some sort of fraud, and may even engage in that fraud themselves to give them the ability to narc on it. Here's a Wall Street Journal poll. national poll. N of 1,500, so a decent size, still pretty small. But a national poll from the Wall Street Journal has Trump +3. And given the way that these polls are conducted, a national poll from the Wall Street Journal that has Trump +3 is probably more like Trump +7. If Trump breaks even on the popular vote, he will win massively in the Electoral College. If Trump wins the popular vote, he will obliterate in the Electoral College. So political election projections here had posted this one here, October 23. So less than 2 weeks to go, so time to start eliminating some toss-ups. Barring some significant changes in the data, I think these will be my final ratings, even though these 3 states remain extremely close. So this is his breakdown he's got here. He's got Georgia as tilt Trump, North Carolina as tilt Trump, and Michigan as tilt Harris. So what this puts it at is, you see there's 46 votes here in the middle that are up for grabs, with Harris at 241 and Trump at 251. Those 46 votes come down to Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. It's looking very, very clear that Pennsylvania is not just lean Trump, but is even likely Trump. So from here alone, winning Pennsylvania wins Trump the election. The narrowest margin. That gets him straight to 250, or 270 rather. Also, it's looking like Nevada is trending very heavily Republican, where if there's a fortification effort, it's going to have to be really high. Arizona's in a similar boat, and I think Arizona and Maricopa County is probably going to end up being the focal point of the battle, we'll say. But based on the numbers that have been coming out lately, and the trend in the narrative, and kind of watching the subtext of how elected officials in some of these states are behaving, Michigan is actually looking pretty strong as a Trump state. All the internal leaks from the Harris campaign are that she's underwater in Michigan and they've just about given up on it. And if Michigan goes, Pennsylvania absolutely goes, and Wisconsin probably goes, and Minnesota maybe even goes. New Mexico maybe goes to Trump. New Hampshire maybe goes to Trump. Michigan's a pretty big bellwether in that sense. So he says another toss-up killer. He's now moving Arizona to tilt R. He says Marist is the closest we have to a gold standard poll in Arizona, and I don't expect more data to change the fact that Trump has had a tiny but consistent lead here. Last shoe to drop is New York Times, but they consistently have strong Trump results. So if Arizona does go to Trump, that puts him at 262, and she has virtually no path. Because here's the big thing. I think Virginia is a lock for Trump. I think Youngkin is going to ensure that Virginia is a lock for Trump. And all the data coming out of Virginia shows very strongly that it's very much in play. And think about Youngkin's perspective, not really having a path forward. Like, his only path forward might be VP in 2028 under Vance. So what better way to instantiate yourself than delivering Virginia? And we've talked before about the possibilities of Michigan and Pennsylvania both being having the rigging efforts drop out from under them, because Gretchen Whitmer and Josh Shapiro are wanting to eliminate a political rival. So these are just some of the numbers that I was studying earlier today. Eric Doherty says 10 Core now has Trump's floor at 262, one of the blue wall 3. So if this is true, then that means Trump just needs one of Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin, which means Kamala needs all of them. And she's down campaigning in Texas now. A little bit of polling update for you guys. Elon posted this a couple days ago, and I thought this was great. Excellent summary of the Lawfare case against Donald Trump that was just crushed by the New York appellate. Incredible, sensible questions by appellate judges had me in stitches. American justice system for the W. This is actually a really good breakdown, and it was little reported, but it's just Trump continuing to rack up W's.
So the Trump fraud case went before the appellate court this week, and by the time it was over, the closing arguments of the Democrat lawyers was just them begging to not get sanctioned. So look, many people aren't aware that the Trump fraud case went before the appeals court this week. And if you don't know how an appeals court works, there are 5 judges that sit in judgment for these cases. And they basically let the prosecution and the defense both lay out their cases. And their job is to consider whether or not the case was worth hearing in the first place. And it went so badly for the Democrat lawyers that by the end of it, their closing arguments was just them begging to not get sanctioned. So they argued a ton of different things throughout this case. But the biggest thing was the judges kept interrupting them. They kept saying, hold on. Can you find me one other time in history where the person who took the loan was able to call the bank that they took the loan from, and then that bank showed up and said, we weren't defrauded? And the lawyers spent like 2 hours trying to find one little instance where it happened. But then the judges said, okay, let's try something else. They said, hey, have you ever prosecuted someone for lying about the value of a property when it resulted in the entire loan being paid back with interest? And again, they gave them like 2 hours to try to explain their case, and they still couldn't produce a single case where that had happened. And then the judges said, hey, you know what? We'll give you another shot. They said, have you ever seen an attorney general prosecute a case where there was no damage to the public, there was no damage to the person you said was defrauded, and there was no actual malice committed by the person who took the loan? And then they took another like 6 hours on that one. And by the end of it, the judges were like, so you don't have any instance of that happening? And then by the time they were done, the judges were like, I don't even know if this is a case that should have been brought. And they said, look, y'all might need to be sanctioned for bringing this case in a malicious manner. One of the judges actually said, I have come to believe that since a case like this has never been brought in the history of the country, not only New York, that you have only brought this case because the person was running for president, which would put you afoul of not only multiple regulations regarding the law, but would also run you afoul of electioneering interference. In fact, at the end of it, when they got to give their closing arguments, instead of arguing the value of their case, instead of arguing that like we should have been able to bring this case because of X and Y and all this shit, they actually just said at the end, we hope that the court will take into account that lawyers need to be able to bring cases like this without the threat of sanction. Basically, they were saying, we hope that you decide that we're not going to get in trouble for bringing this bullshit case. That was what happened at the appellate court. So Trump being found guilty of fraud and having to pay 500 some odd million fucking dollars, and the whole left celebrating about that, he's going to get all that money back because the appellate court is like, this is a bullshit case. The people he took the loan from literally came to court on his behalf and said, hey, we weren't defrauded. We knew he overvalued Mar-a-Lago. We took that into our calculations. And even if we had taken that into our calculations and the value of Mar-a-Lago was part of 0.14, like the president of Deutsche Bank said, you know why we gave him the loan? It had nothing to do with the value of Mar-a-Lago. It had to do with we've given him 21 other loans and he has paid back all 21 with interest. We were giving him the loan regardless of the value of anything. And that's where the appellate court was like, how do you have a case? Deutsche Bank literally said we were giving him the loan regardless. And that's when they started begging to not get sanctioned. So yeah, that's what happened with the Trump fraud case this week. Going really well for the Democrats.
The competency crisis hits the lawfare industry. Just stacking up W's. Speaking of stacking up W's, we have brought on a new sponsor of the ASTROLABE. That sponsor is Axios Fitness Coaching. The current moment we live in is one that prioritizes the inverse of whatever makes men strong, healthy, and capable. The quality of our food continues to decline, plastics construct everything around us, and the virtues of beauty and strength are continuously denigrated by spiteful mutants. To sustain ourselves, we have to take a pathway of action that cultivates and revitalizes our spirit. Return to being builders of culture instead of consumers of a cheap synthetic excuse for life. That pathway will require an adoption of physical discipline. And this is what Axios Fitness Coaching seeks to help bring about. You inspired? You need some W's in your life? Axios Fitness Coaching is a premium resource for holistic strength and conditioning services. They offer standalone training programs as well as individual coaching options should your needs require a more specific approach. Axios is best known for the Training Club, an exclusive community that prioritizes accountability, technique, diet, and nutrition. Everything you need to take action against the decay of modernity. By joining the club, you'll get access to over 20 different programs that can be personally tailored to your strength levels, available equipment, and injury history. By completing the intake survey that is linked in the description below, you can see if you're a good candidate for the training club or any of their other services. It's long past time we take our health back into our own hands. Without action, there is only degeneration. We're going to win. And if you want a little something extra, we've got a little something extra for our King Pill Discord members. Anyone above the Lord tier, the Lord or King tiers and the King Pill Discord at kingpill.com, you'll get access to 5 free training templates as well. So you can take it for a test drive, use some of their training templates. You'll get an invite to the training app if you enter your email address here. So if you're already a member of the King Pill Discord, then go to the Fitness Whole Pizza in My Mouth channel, look at the pinned messages, and you'll see the link to get your 5 free training templates. So if you would like to get access to them, you too may join the King Pill Discord at kingpill.com and become a member of the elite vanguard of the internet. Or you can go down to the link in the description and click the intake survey link, go enter your information, fill out the survey, and see what Axios Fitness Coaching can do for you. We've had a great response. JD, good friend of the show, proud to support his venture, and he's happy to support us. Sent me a text and he said the turnout's been great. You guys have been responding. So those of you who haven't responded, who've been feeling like, I should do that, but I just don't have the time, and you kind of make excuses for yourself, just know that you're being left behind. Do you really want to be left behind? Are you going to continue to turn our culture over to the spiteful mutants? Or are you going to start your physique maxing journey? Get your health in order. Axios Fitness Coaching. Links in the description, or you join the King Pill Discord, kingpill.com, at the Lord tier or above, and go get access to your 5 free training templates. All right. This is an interesting concept. Elite hypocrisy. This is from Rob Henderson, at Rob K. Henderson on Twitter. Says there has always been some amount of elite hypocrisy. Still, I prefer what I call the John F. Kennedy model of hypocrisy to what we have now. Well, let's watch this video, and then I'll finish reading the rest of his tweet.
The other day I was flipping through the meritocracy trap. Daniel Markovits, he's a professor here, and he referred to this, this new upper class, the new elites, as unpracticing libertines. In other words, they have this commitment, this abstract political commitment to permissive social values, but then privately, they live sort of very disciplined lives to the right boxes, go to the right schools, get the right jobs, marry the right person, get your kids into the right schools, and so on. And so they'll vote and promote values one way, but then live very differently. I don't know who coined this phrase that the new upper class walks the 50s and talks the 60s. The other day I was flipping through the meritocracy trap.
Walks the 50s and talks the 60s. So continuing his tweet here, he says, JFK was a flawed man, but the image he presented to the American public was that he was a good husband, a good father. In his private life, though, he was a philanderer and often an absentee father and had other shortcomings. But he thought it was important to set an example for the people. And now we have the opposite. Today, our elites get married, they have kids, and for the most part, they live a very stable, conventional life. But if you ask them their opinions and attitudes around family, around marriage, around law-abidingness, hard work, punctuality, integrity, honest, and so on, they take a very relaxed attitude to undersell it. Elites used to pay lip service to conventional values, but privately strayed. Now they publicly support straying, but privately behave in a more conventional way. And I think this is part of the shift that we're beginning to see. We're starting to see people like RFK or Elon. Trump was like the iconic example of this, a man who everyone who hated him obsessed over his private failings, but publicly he presented a much more dignified, aspirational, inspirational persona. I think there's something to this. Like, if you're in a position of leadership, you're responsible to not have private moral failings, but you're going to have private moral failings because you're a human being. In spite of those private moral failings, it still matters if you publicly present yourself as a traditional, upstanding, moral person, and you promote these values verbally, That still matters. It's good to promote them even if you don't necessarily personally engage in them. Elite hypocrisy. I thought that was a pretty interesting concept. And the last thing I've got for you guys today, shout out to Appalachia. This guy says, serious question. I think this style of music is awesome. Is there a name for its kind? Are there albums to stream featuring this type of singing? Forgive my ignorance sincerely. It needs to make a comeback. Listen to this. Sea shanties for Christ. That's so good. So this is actually a thing I'd stumbled across this before and didn't really look at it. And then I kind of looked into it a little bit more. It's called shape singing. Here's another one. That gets me. So here's this thread here from Joshua Abatoy. He says, what if I told you that there's a treasure trove of ancient American Protestant hymns out there that almost no one today has heard of? Except maybe some of those old churches you've driven past in Appalachia. You know, the ones that look like this. Maybe Primitive Baptist or Cumberland Presbyterian. Maybe still know how to sing with shape notes as they've been doing since they were planted 200 years ago by circuit riders, passing down secret harmonies from generation to generation until they take on local patina. Imagine being there on a Sunday morning, packed full of hillbillies with barely a fourth grade education, coming to sing on Sunday after a week of working a mule team or digging in the coal mines. And they open their mouths and sing stuff like this. I have to make this brief because it's on YouTube, but... I'm not going to tease it anymore here. Look at these lyrics. Oh, for a heart to praise my God, a heart from sin set free, a heart that's sprinkled with his blood so freely shed for me. Oh, for a heart submissive, meek, my great Redeemer's throne, where only Christ is heard to speak, where Jesus reigns alone. Oh, for an humble, contrite heart, believing, true, and clean, which neither life nor death can part from him that dwells within. A heart in every thought renewed, and full of love divine, perfect and right and pure and good, a copy, Lord, of thine. Some of these ancient hymns are codified in an 1835 hymnal, Southern Harmony and Musical Companion, also Sacred Heart hymnals. YRR types should study how these songs are theologically precise and yet achingly poetic, very different than the prosaic stuff churned out today. Truly, the past is a foreign country. Your hillbilly ancestors went to church at places named Cripple Creek Baptist or Dark Hollow Presbyterian and could sing 4-part harmonies and understood the elevated language of the King James Bible. Meanwhile, you go to the Journey Church with a coffee shop style aura and think the confessional singer-songwriter songs are very cultured and authentic, like Bob Dylan. And after worship, you go to mimosa brunch instead of potluck and enjoy some tasteful banter. You are fey. There's a great documentary about it here in the comments. Awake My Soul. This is the music I grew up listening to my relations singing. I was born and still live in the epicenter of Sacred Heart, Appalachia. Some varieties of Mennonites still have these songs in their hymnals, shaped notes and all. Found this one recently in Southwest West Virginia. Look at that beautiful old church. Yeah, Seventh-day Adventist. My people. Ain't No Grave. There's another good one. I have note singing books. So this is a thing called shape singing. Let me just look up. I was looking at the Wikipedia on it, and it's something that I need to read a little more to really understand. But it was apparently a technique for teaching people how to sing really easily. Like if you had like uneducated people, just like blue collar workers, and so this was a technique. Shape note singing is a musical tradition that involves singing from books with notes in different shapes to represent their scale degree and psalmization syllable. So you use a simplified notation to teach singing and facilitate social singing. So it has it's called shape singing because they have these actual shaped notes. So it was a way for people to easily learn. It was like a streamlined way for people to easily learn how to sing these choral songs together. There's a fascinating thing about, this is very closely adjacent to the culture I grew up with. And I never even heard of this until a couple months ago. And then it came across my timeline again today. And so I plugged this one in for the show. I've never heard of shape note singing or sacred harp singers in Appalachia. This is deeply American. These are the heartland Americans. It originated in late 18th century England and became popular in American singing schools. Each section has a different melodic line, and the leader stands in the middle. Singers learn their parts by singing the note names, then join to sing the words together. It's mainly in the South, including the North Carolina mountains. All-day gatherings known as singings that typically include several hours of singing, socializing, and a potluck meal. This is if you've never been a part of, like, I haven't done this type of singing, but I've done a lot of choir singing, and I was in my high school was very musical. We had an orchestra and a choir, and I played the cello and I sang bass in the choir. So anytime that we would go on mission trips or go out camping or whatever, we would just sit around the fire and sing in like multi-part harmonies, and sometimes there was guitar, sometimes there wasn't. Sitting and singing together with people, especially these really majestic songs, is a profoundly spiritual experience. If you've never had that experience, I feel bad for you. You need to seek that out. You need to go find that somewhere. You could find it in the Orthodox Church, because that's what an Orthodox service is like. He's saying Wonderwall. No, no, it was an extremely conservative bunch of homeschoolers that went away to academy. There was no Wonderwall being sung there. All right, well, that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you for showing up and watching. We've still got 105 watching and only 94 likes, so I need 6 more likes. Before I can give you guys Hulk, I need my 6 likes. I'm greedy. I'm covetous. I covet my likes. Give them to me. Give them. You can follow me on Twitter @RealKingPilled. Join the KingPilled Discord, kingpilled.com. We're going to be doing a schizo stream tomorrow. We're going to be watching The art of the surge. Unless Ford shows up again and decides to regale us with stories from the North Carolina hills. We'll be watching Tucker Carlson's documentary of his man who's embedded with Trump. I'll be tweeting out the master thread of all the stuff that I covered today on the show. I'll be tweeting that out here this afternoon as soon as I'm done with the stream. So if you want to go find any of these links for yourself, you want to go watch them or share them or read into them more, then you know where to find them. At Real King Pilled on Twitter. Come on, I need 4 more likes. 4 more. We're at 96. Give me 97. I'm going to do it, folks. Come on. 97. If you haven't hit the like yet, you gotta close out the chat. You gotta go over. You gotta hit the like button. You could share it. You could share it if you'd like. That'd be great. Get some more people over here watching. You could follow me on Twitter. I'm gonna keep saying that. I'm gonna keep cycling through. Buymeacoffee.com/kingpilled. I'm doing this basically full time now, so any support you guys can provide is very useful. You become a channel member, $5 a month, merely, to watch the conversation that I had with Jason last night, talking about Trump being installed. It's a good one. It's a very good one, very meaningful. And we covered some stuff that I think we're setting the stage for some more stuff that we're going to be talking about going forward, because we're looking beyond the election at this point. We're pretty confident in what's going to happen, and it's going to be important that people are prepared for what comes next, because the real danger comes afterwards. And that danger exists no matter which way it goes. It's just going to be a question of exactly how it manifests. But that danger is still going to be present. We're at 99. Need one more. Give me one more like, folks. One single solitary like, and I give you Hulk. Do, 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 do. There it is. I give you Hulk.
They're my hero. And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America